Canvas and Hapara really helped make that possible.
So the next piece of the LEAP learning framework is learner demonstrated, and learner demonstrated enables learners to progress at a pace that's based on their demonstrated competencies. So one way that we've practiced learner demonstrated is through self-paced math units. With these self-paced math units, we're giving our students comprehensive pre-assessments to determine student readiness for the upcoming material. These assessments are chunked by standard and topic, and they allow teachers to review the assessment data and a student's map data to create units that are allow for comprehensive instruction as well as productive struggle. Once we have this data and we've created these units, we've built these units, we are providing students with an individualized path, and this path highlights for a student what they've already shown understanding of, what they've shown that they've been exposed to, and then what they're ready to learn next. With this individualized plan put in place, students are then asked to set goals and objectives. This happens on a daily level for each one of their lessons, and this goal setting process encourages student agency and also provides them ownership over their learning. With this goal setting process, they're asked to reflect on these goals daily or sometimes even multiple times a class period and change those goals in order to encourage them to strive for their maximum level of potential.
So we've all kind of talked about student pacing, and that may seem like they're just there doing whatever they want for 50 minutes a day, and that's all it is. But it really isn't that. You know, pacing is about giving them an opportunity to master it when they're ready to master it. You know, if you think about traditional teaching, a teacher in the front of the room teaches a lesson, you flip the page of the book, and you move on to the next thing. It really doesn't work as well for all kids. And when you talk about all kids, you do talk about personalized learning. So for this, you know, we're not in the front of the room. We're all over the place. I'm kneeling next to kids constantly. I haven't stood in front of the room for more than 10 minutes to teach something quick, and I can't tell you how long. And the great thing about that is I'm able to help them right there in the moment. It doesn't have to wait until the next day, and they can go on ahead of somebody else, and you know, they're assessing when they're ready, and that assessment when they're ready allows us to then enrich their learning if they're ready for it, or reteach that learning if they need more of it. So it really opens the doors for a lot of great things we can do. Not only that, you know, it also helps us build really great relationships with kids, as my colleagues have talked about. I mean, I can tell you a story about a girl who was just very quiet, and you know, you have those kids who just kind of sit and they do what they got to do, and you don't really get a lot of opportunities to make those connections in the classroom unless you're out with the kids in the room walking around. And we had this great moment where she was actually making fun of one of my videos with me, and we laughed about it. And since that moment, her and I have had a different connection. You know, she's more open to ask me for help. She's asking for it more often. You know, I co-teach as well. One of my co-teachers, Sharon Byrne, came up with this really great idea of a form where the kids fill it out, and it allows me to go to them when I can. You know, so you get a kid in a room raising their hand for an extended period of time, eventually they're going to put it down if you don't get there fast enough. This form allows me to help every kid, and sometimes I get there and they've already found that answer themselves, or somebody else helped them. And but I'm still checking in. I'm still there, and that's been really great. Also, it allows us as teachers to kind of see, all right, what kids are asking us the most for help, because those are the kids then maybe we need to give them different, you know, opportunities, different resources, different methods of learning. And so for that, you know, personalized learning has really changed what we do and has made our kids even more successful than I would say they were in the past.
And just kind of going off of that, I'm the interventionist at Middle South, and one of the things that's been really great to see is the shift in the instructional paradigm, really, away from the teacher and really towards the learner. Students are very aware of their strengths and their weaknesses, and they can allot their time accordingly. If they understand that, like, well, this concept's going to be difficult for me, I'm going to need to spend a little bit more time on it before I'm able to show mastery. And from an interventionist standpoint, it's great because instead of just marching through the curriculum on a time-based kind of pacing guide, they're actually saying, oh, I get this, I know this, and I can move on, which is what we want for all of our students. So it's really exciting to see. And at the end of that process, they're able to make their own choices as far as how they want to demonstrate that mastery. They can use technology, they can use their art, they can use creativity to kind of show their teacher what they know and what they're able to do. So it's been an exciting change.
Good evening. Jackie and I are going to bring it home for you. The last LEAP Learner Framework is Learner Connected, and this is the piece that really ties it all together. This is the piece that takes education and transcends it into the community and into larger networks. It really makes the learning real and applicable to these students. LEAP first taught us something about co-design, and we were a little taken aback by, what do you mean co-design? And they gave us this idea that we would start to engage students in the planning and walk with them along creating assessments that they would then use and be assessed with. So this idea of bringing the students kind of behind the scenes to do the job that we kind of been trained to do, that we've kind of thought is our role, and bring them in and bring them to the table has really transformed the classroom. The students are super excited that they were a part of it. They're more engaged because they had a say in it. They had a voice. You've been hearing that over and over tonight about giving students voice and choice. This is actually giving them voice and choice to choosing what they're going to learn, and then choosing how they want to demonstrate it, and then how they're going to then be assessed by it. Example, in social studies, we work on timelines. At the beginning of the year, they had to do a really boring timeline where we had given them all these examples. You need to research your history, and you need to tell us a little bit about yourself. I tried it again, and I told them, you can do your timeline on whatever you want. I had a timeline on goats. I had a timeline on Nintendo. I had a timeline on rappers and themselves. And the kids left, and they were super engaged. They didn't need to be redirected. They were just really excited about it. And then they were begging me to present, where it was like pulling teeth before. And it was just a total turnaround of seeing those students really bring that in. That also creates student agency and giving students ownership in their learning. We also are looking at digital portfolios. Student portfolios aren't anything new, but it's different now because we're really having those students kind of track their growth. We've been talking about a growth mindset, and this really has them look at, okay, here's where I'm at, here's where I need to go, how am I getting there, how am I showing my understanding along the way, and really giving them ownership in their learning, which is ultimately what we want. The other thing is we are really allowing students now to stay connected. We just battled the flu season. Flu rolled through Middle School South and took kids out for 7 days at a time. Thanks to you, our students have one-to-one devices. And instead of being 1 week behind now, students were able to Skype in and FaceTime with their groups and stay in the classroom even though they were at home because they had a fever and things like that. On Friday, we weren't here in school, but I was grading and putting things into Power School, and I had put a comment in that, hey, I'm missing your timeline, please submit it. Within 20 minutes, the kid had emailed me his timeline presentation. I put it in, and boom, it was done. Whereas I would normally have to kind of track them down and beg them for their work. It was done in seconds, so that was great. We really want to take what the kids are learning and, like I said, really transcend it into the community and into larger networks. And Mrs. Ray is going to talk to you a little bit about how she's done that with her writing class. So, Jackie?
So we're on the next slide, you're going to see some examples of what Mrs. Dravas has been speaking about. So this is an example of a growth plan, similar to a portfolio. It can be used both ways, but you can see how students would take formative assessment feedback from their instructor and be able to identify, and highlighted in yellow are items that they've identified as this is where I have a greatest opportunity for growth, and then they create action plans. Later, students come back to these and they're able to provide evidence and show, okay, this was my action plan, and here's the evidence of how I met that standard or how I met that goal. On the next slide, this is an example of how we've included students in the development of assessment tools and assessment processes. We've done it a few different ways between our two classes. We've had leadership panels and panel discussions where students engage in the process of creating the criteria for a learning experience. We've also used online survey tools where we can take that feedback, and you can see we have data there that shows what role students wanted peer reviews to have in their learning process, what role they wanted, when they worked on something collaborative, how much of a impact their group should have versus the individual aspects of their project. And so this feedback was incredibly important. And it, more than anything, because it really honestly didn't change my rubrics that much, but more than anything, they felt like it had changed the rubrics. They felt that they had a voice in the process, and that buy-in was huge in terms of what they were able to then be motivated to do afterwards. On the last slide, this is an example of that connecting our learning to the outside world. Just one example of how we can, in writing classes, we did informative writing projects on global citizenship, where students chose a topic that is globally important to them or impactful in their lives, and they chose an audience that was appropriate for them to inform, created informative writing pieces, and then shared those and published them. Some students made websites and actually published them on their social media. Some students sent those links or informative pieces to students and teachers at the elementary schools that they thought would benefit from learning about these topics. And so that really kind of created that connection with the community, as well as the global platform where they're able to feel like they're making an impact in their world. So while it is very informative and exciting to hear from us, it's even better to hear from our students. So we have a quick video where you can see some examples of how LEAP and personalized learning has benefited us and our students through the lens of a student.
I like personalized learning because it's better learning the way you would like to learn. And when we did the stations in the library, I liked it because you got to choose what you were more comfortable with and doing, and you learn at your own pace, so you're not pressured to do it and like you have to finish it by the end of the period. Like you get your own time, and you also focus on the things you need help on, and you complete checkups so the teachers see if you understood the lesson or not.
Sometimes we'll get a preview of what the different lessons are, and we'll also get mini lessons during class and to check up after the mini lesson to see if we understood it, and if we didn't, we can always ask for more help, or we can just move on to a different lesson.
I like it because I like to be able to, like, if I don't understand something the teacher said, I can go watch the video, and also that if I'm behind, then I can go get extra help from the teacher, or if I'm ahead and I already know what we're learning about, then I can watch the video so I don't get like stuck behind.
Using personalized learning has helped me with understanding math because it has let us choose what is the best way for us to learn and understand the material.
Because if we're each doing like, well, personalized, it's yourself, so we're kind of at like our own little space where we're doing what we're confused on or what we're understanding and getting help on that certain subject than something else that you might be better at.
I believe that giving students the choice on what they work on at what step is more efficient than giving them a test, and the student works on the level that they are given.
Well, in math we use Alex, and that's just like a perfect personalized learning track for us. I feel like everyone has to kind of go along with what every student needs, and they like ask, do you have any questions? And if you have extra help, or if you need extra help, you can always go in and ask someone. So it's not like they force it on you, but if you need to personalize your own learning, you can do that how you want. I think that the Chromebooks really help us with personalized learning because it gives every student an opportunity to personalize what they need to do, like with the Alex and Khan Academy. And I like it personally because I feel like in a lot of different subjects, I'm all over the place. Like I'm either really ahead or really far behind. It's just like a really good track. I think that every student is individual and we all have to have like a different path, and the fact that they're acknowledging that by giving us personalized learning is really good.
The reason I enjoy personalized learning is because we get to choose what we want to do when we want to do it. Even though we have to do everything, we get to choose when we want to do it. So personalized learning is the best way for me to learn and understand things more.
To create my own learning experiences makes me feel really good inside, because when I get like a really good grade in a project, I know that I contributed in my learning, creating the rubric or creating like the layout for what I did, and getting like an A on it just makes me feel so happy that I took charge of my own learning and contributed it towards getting a good grade or getting a better score on like a test or something like that.
Okay. So as we look to the future, we have some exciting things coming up. This spring, we have our second cohort of teachers going through the Leap Activate program. So that is exciting because we are continuing our work through them. And our original group is actually going to be observed from schools who are just starting on their journey. So we are, becoming a place where other people come to see us, which is pretty exciting as well. Next year, 6th and 7th grades at Middle South will adopt the EdTech Tool Canvas, and 8th grade at Middle North will adopt the EdTech Tool Canvas, and then the following year, we will continue with everybody else. So eventually, we will all have access to that tool, which has been very valuable in personalizing learning. And beyond that, we expect to see a shift in climate and culture. We are already seeing it. You've heard about it tonight, but we are expecting to hear our students have a larger voice. They have more choice. Their agency will increase. Our classrooms might look a little bit different with flexible seating. And their thinking, their interests are really just going to be highlighted through this work. And so we expect to see them grow and flourish. We wanted to leave you with one final quote from our personalized learning coach at Leap, Jen. This is what she had to say about our teams. And then after that, we would be happy to take any of your questions. Thank you.
It's kind of unique. So a couple of things that we've talked about for the past years, especially Hapara, you've heard that a couple times. You guys voted on it as a board. That's part of our security. So it's kind of fun because even when we're in Chicago at our training, the teachers can see what the students are doing and shut it down. It's kind of fun because Mr. Natal on my screen, we see the whole school at one time, so it's like type 1 font. It's so super hard to read, but if we take a teacher's device, I'll go in. I don't know if you do this, but I'll shut things down just to see if the kid's paying attention, if they're looking around, and then they'll look over like, it's just me. It is a great, great tool, especially Gaggle that we've used too. Which it's kind of nice when you do that on Friday night, and you have the opportunity to call home and say, "Oh, Mrs. Natal, you might want to check what Rob is on his device right now." You have a chat with your son. But I mean, I think if we build our schools too, probably less, what you say, because Nick is on there too, probably less than 10 all year long. So our kids have been great.
Except for Mr. Natal. Constantly calling his house. Yeah.
The kids have been great with it. So I know what Audrey mentioned, she's teaching a boring lesson on a timeline. I think what she meant to say is the message to all our teachers have been, take a risk and be innovative. And if it doesn't go right the first time, do it again even better and reflect on it and make it awesome. Where no one's going to beat you up or slap you around or put it on your evaluation, but make it better the next time and do something different. Take a risk and just try it. So these folks have been really good about leaving their comfort zones, especially some teachers of not having that direct instruction for 45, 50 minutes. I'm giving that ownership up, and that's all part of that trust that we have between ourselves. Just we trust you as professionals to do what's best for children, and they absolutely do that. So that's what another highlight is. So if you have any questions, I mean, we did give you a lot of information. This has been over a year or so of work, and we've been very thankful for the opportunity. So if you have anything.
I think what you're doing is great, and I want to thank this group for leading the way, something that really has the potential to move us forward quite a bit with learning in the district. So I want to thank you guys for that. With the different learning styles that students have, do you find at all that it may not be for all of the students? And also, is there any thought about whether it's applicable to younger age groups or not?
I think like what we touched on, some of our kids, they just goofed off and they didn't get through the Monday's lesson. So if Tuesday came and the Monday was not done, the checkup, one of us personally pulled that small group and we sat with them, and it was more of the traditional learning. I went through an example with them, tried it on their own, we did the checkup. So the kids who couldn't handle it is very apparent right at the start, and gradually they've kind of been like, I don't want to sit in this group, so they become more responsible and more self-advocates. So yeah, it's very apparent who needs the extra support, and so we've all been there.
And sometimes I think I've had kids tell me they like when I stand up and teach. So we still do a lot of that because for some kids that works for them, and that's part of that choice. I mean, I still every any lesson that I have kids go through at their own pace, I still go up and I'll teach it kind of like I used to, you know, where I just kind of go through the examples. And I'll have kids that will opt in to coming and sit. And I think it's just part of giving them those options. You know, for some of them, they don't necessarily want to move at their own pace. They want to move at a pace that somebody kind of helps them through, and that's just more comfortable for them, and that's okay. That's our, you know, that's what we do.
Another piece about LEAP, as Anthony had said, he made a connection with one of his students and the ability to move around the classroom more. Part of LEAP is also getting to know your students and, you know, their interests and their, you know, different learning styles and getting more in tune to that. So then you would create groups where you are doing smaller, you know, direct instruction, other groups who are, you know, working individually. So that learning the students on a larger level is also a huge piece that plays into how we set, you know, our different personalized learning stations up.
I would say that since starting the self-paced unit and building in the opportunity for students to request personalized help, and I do conferences because I'm doing a writing workshop approach, and I have gotten to know through those conferences and through the assessment checks that I built into the module, I know my students and the levels that they're working at better than I ever have in the 12 years that I've been teaching. I feel like I am so much more in tune with my students, the levels that they're going toward, their goals, and their interest. It's really incredible how much my understanding of them has improved, and that I'm able to provide instruction that reacts to that, and also to be proactive with their instruction based on how well I've gotten to know them.
A good feature on the ECRA portal is the students give us feedback. They take an assessment on how they learn, and then the whole team can see how the child scored, as well as someone mentioned too, the kids give us they write like a paragraph that'll carry over from year to year. So if the child is in 6th grade, their 7th grade team will see it, and it's the student writing how they learn. So if you don't like to speak in front of everybody, or there's something that's not your cup of tea, the students write that, so all stakeholders get to see that information. And just like I believe it was Audrey that stated, the students articulate that throughout the year in conference with their homeroom teachers.
To address your question about the elementary school, I think that we definitely think that the elementary classroom lends itself well to personalized learning, and that a lot of what our elementary school teachers already do is very personalized because of all these reasons. They know their learners so well because they have, you know, a smaller number with them throughout the day, and so they see all those connections. But I know it's definitely something that we are working with our elementary teachers to give them some of the tools that we're learning as well.
A large percentage of the other schools that are represented in our pilot network group that we've been going and meeting with once a month down in the city, a lot of them are elementary school teachers. I mean, we're often working with 2nd grade, 1st grade teachers who are implementing personalized learning.
I had some, but I wanted to give other people a chance. So when we say personalized learning at this level, are we using that synonymously with one-to-one devices? Or I hear personalized learning throughout the district, but obviously at the elementary level, this isn't on any kind of device. So is this framework something that is being used with or without technology?
It definitely can be. The technology piece, I think, assists with the way you structure it and the delivery approach, but it's not a necessity.
Okay. Yeah. And then as far as mastery goes, which obviously would ultimately be our goal, right? For me, it's very clear if you're talking about a program like Alex or something like that, I could totally envision how that forces them into mastery before they continue on to the next concept. But when we're talking about things that are a little less concrete and kids are maybe not getting an A on something, maybe they're getting a B or a C or, you know, then obviously they've mastered some of the material, probably not all the material, but nonetheless, we do move on. So at some point, somebody's pace, although it's somewhat self-guided, is going to be off kilter for some students. So how are we addressing that sort of need where you go, these concepts build on each other? So maybe you understood dividing fractions, but maybe you didn't understand it quite well enough to build on and go to the next concept. So how do we address that?
I mean, in a language arts setting, there is a lot more subjectivity in terms of determining whether they have met standards or they have met that level of proficiency. For me, I've included rubric-based assessment for all of the standards for our writing curriculum, and the language arts would be the same. So you're still getting that feedback from the teacher. It's not coming from an automated system
Sure.
like Alex would, but that's the way we've always traditionally done it. So obviously the teacher's assessment and evaluation is going to be key there. But I think then taking that assessment feedback or the rubrics that students can see, okay, on this rubric there's 6 criteria or 6 standards that I needed to meet in an informative writing piece. And I met this one. I was exceeded the standard on this in this criteria, and I'm only developing in this one. That's where the students then, we identify that and we really hone in on the ones where they have not yet met proficiency and that we need to work on as we continue through the year. Obviously, the goal is for all students to be at least proficient, if not exceeding certain standards by the end of the school year. I mean, they're not necessarily going to do that right away, but it is a continuum. And then the nice thing about having this all online is we can then also, that can follow them. Like we can provide next year's teacher with that information. Students have access to all those files. They have access to everything that they've done in terms of their growth portfolios, and so we can really use that data to continue them on that path. I don't know if you want to talk about the math portion.
Yeah, I think it's important to note, though, that a lot of the things we have done that have been successful in the kids, working outside of school, during lunch, after school, before school, all of that stuff is still things that go on every single day. And as far as the pacing part goes, when I talk about pacing for me, and you guys can jump in if you think it's a little different, I'm actually giving more time to these units because of that reason, because some kids are going to need that extra time. And like I said, if you get kids that go through it quicker, which believe me, we have, that gives you an opportunity to allow them to progress even further past their learning, to exceed those standards like we would hope our kids to do. And then that also still gives you the time to really get those kids that maybe are struggling to master. And the great thing about mathematics is it is it does build upon itself. So those things do show up time and time again. I mean, right now we're working through algebra and there's still fractions and decimals. So that stuff still has opportunities for us to review and reteach and give those students another chance to master those skills. So I think the timing that we provide with the pacing allows for us to kind of cover all that.
Just to piggyback off that too, I was thinking of like some of the math issues that we were having. Like we collaborated. Like he's got 2 really good co-teachers. He has me as an interventionist, and we kind of sat down and problem solved. Like, okay, well, let's see if it's this. Is this the issue, or if it's not the issue? And problem solve and working together in that collaboration, because we have that, that teamwork.
When we're talking about these files following these kids throughout the years, like I hear the example of like you're able to see what the kids are doing and shut it down or whatever, but who else is able to see these things? I mean, what are the privacy protections on Google that all these?
It's not on Google. It's through our ECRA.
It's only on that.
It's the ECRA portal, but we've used ECRA for long before I came to Hawthorn 73.
Mm-hmm.
So they open it up to the teachers that can see that.
So the stuff they're doing on Google Classroom and uploading constantly and sending in.
That's Google. That's separate then.
Right.
ECRA, but we still have those security factors are in place at the district level.
I mean, when they submit things on Canvas, only the teachers who are enrolled in their class can see it. So same with Google Classroom. Like if Harris has a Google Classroom, I cannot go in there and see whatever her kids submitted. It's just specifically what the kids share with you or what they upload to the learning management tool, if that was your question.
Okay.
Any of their documents that they've created or that they've added to that a teacher has created. So for example, like my growth plan format, it's a Google Doc, but our students do not have the ability, like it cannot be shared or viewed outside of the Hawthorn73.org setting. So our tech department has set it up so that they cannot travel outside of our district network.
Else? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was amazing. So, 1 minute to leave. Everyone? So the first discussion item is the EFMP. It is we had the community meeting on the 21st we had the town hall where we all got a chance to talk in small groups to people who are interested. So now I wanted to, what was in the town hall, what was said, we all heard it, we all were there. So we won't go into a recap of this. So I wanted to know, when you were in the small groups, what was it that some of the things that you heard in particular that you want to share with the rest of the group, as well as what do you feel the next step should be? So we'll go around, we'll kind of talk about it. What was some of the constructive points on going forward, and what are the next steps you feel that you should take? And then we'll discuss this as a group and see what are some of the steps we should be taking. Okay, Wes?
Oh, okay. Well, I think that even when I was doing the small group, and then even talking to some community members after the fact, they had watched the presentation online. A lot of them said that they, I don't know if enjoyed is the appropriate word, but the day in the life video really resonated with them.
Mm-hmm.
I know on one social media post, community members said that it was heartbreaking finding out that we have students learning in such cramped quarters. So I'm, really glad that we included that with the presentation. I was happy to learn that, there are, community members that really do want to get involved and want to help us be successful moving forward. That's always a positive.
For the next steps, kind of, what are your thoughts? And like I said, we'll go around, see, and then come to a consensus or take steps once everybody has mentioned what they feel like next steps kind of would be. So
I think the town hall setting really worked. I liked how that's set up, and maybe next time we as a board can maybe sit up more and take questions kind of as a panel, so that Sonali doesn't have to stand up there and field all the hate and by herself. We can share it.
That's generous of you.
Robin is not.
I'm just kidding.
You're welcome, Sonali.
I get the stairs 100 times.
But I definitely think letting the community have the opportunity to speak, and Robin did an excellent job running back and forth.
Oh, thanks.
With the mic.
I'm wearing my gym shoes next time.
Yes.
Anything else?
That's all I got for now.
Jeff?
I heard there was one person who spoke from the public, and then I heard from a few people afterwards that they wanted to hear from the board some options, or where the board might be thinking about going in terms of direction. So it's something for us to think about for the next meetings that we're looking at having, because like we talked about before that meeting, we're just going to get a lot of different ideas perhaps, but I think there's some members of the community that would really like to know where we want to go and look at options that we might be presenting. So that's something for us to think about. I thought the meeting was good. I thought the attendance was pretty good. So I think it was a good first step.
Matt?
Wow. I was going to say three things. I can't think of the third one, but the two that came up with the group that I was with for most of the night was transparency and communication. And the third is, like Jeff said, come to them with a plan. And that group will get behind us and take to the streets and really work it. The other thing a lot of them wanted to see was a better tax breakout per household. That seemed to be a major confusion point. That slide seemed to befuddle everyone. And ops costs for all the buildings too. But the big thing I think was that we got a good group there that seemed to want to get behind us and really help pound the pavement. You have to get a plan to them.
Oh, okay. Anything else? Okay. When you said transparency, and just for so that all of us are on the same page, what do they mean when they say transparency and communication? Kind of what were they hinting at, or what were they trying to allude at?
I think a lot of it was, again, the confusion with the tax breakouts. There was a lot of discussion about STEM and STEAM, and we had a back and forth about whether it was good or not. And I said, well, part of the problem is the survey we got back was kind of split 50-50, and that doesn't really help us when the community can't even decide which way we should go. So where would we stand on STEAM, STEM?
So transparency in our decisions, this kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. And then just do a better job of communicating those decisions. Right. Okay. Jason?
My small group was a group of one, and which was great. We had a very good conversation, but the main point there was, again, more information on the finances. Okay. Again, same as Matt's, the tax breakout, in terms of how we came up with those. What we can give a formula, but people just want to say, okay, here's my house, and here's how much you're asking. It's going to affect me this much. I don't want to do much math. Right? Just give it to me.
So we just need a price per value of thousands of dollars.
No, even that, that's too much. That you have to do math. So
they just want to plug it in a calculator that they can do it.
Kind of like a rough grid. Here, I think I sent something to Abe saying, here are like 5 amounts that we might ask for, and here are 5 rough household amounts, 200, 300, 400,000 homes. And for every one of those, here's what your thing is. Then they can kind of like get, I'm close to this cell, this is about what it is. Yes, we can give them the per thousand, but then they're going to have to do the math. Like Jeff, or I'm sorry, like Matt said, here it is. Here's more information. But again, how we came up with that is also one of the things, I don't know, that comes up with the transparency. We didn't just, pull it out of the air, but we have some basis for those numbers, as well as the cost for all the different additions. We have that. It's there.
They need to see it.
But they need to see it. They say, okay, it's $9 million for this building, and what do you get for that? So we have all that information. It's in our plans, but unless you really dig into it, you don't get a sense of what am I getting. So the overall question is, what am I getting for that money?
Okay.
And so for Aspen, I'm spending $1.5 million. What am I getting for that? For Middle North,
more
I'm spending
detailed presentation.
$9.
More itemized.
What am I getting? It's on that plan, but it's hard to see.
Right, and I think that the on camp or the all on the whole campus plan, I guess, it is broken down, but it's hard to read. So and a lot of times people just want to see what their school is getting.
Yeah.
No.
And which is fine. I understand that. But if we had a sheet for each school or that,
Yeah, so we had a sheet that
shows
the one that showed
just
each building,
the building
how much. But then you need more. Some want more detail. What am I getting for that?
Right.
So that was the conversation I had. I'm kind of confused with what Jeff said about they want us to come up with a plan. The point of this meeting was we kept hearing you keep showing us plans, but you're not taking our feedback. Right. So it's like, what do we do here?
That was the discussion I had at my table where I'm like the same
you
thing
want
where give us a plan. I go, but that's why you're here.
Yeah.
To help us come up with a plan.
Come up with that
that's
plan.
where their breakdown, I think, was trying to get that message back and forth.
We at that half want more input, and the other half just want us to kind of work and give them the plan, and we have to figure out that balance then.
Robin?
So though when I looked out at the crowd, I was sort of pleased with attendance. A lot of the faces were staff members, and while I'm happy to see them there, and I think their input is important to this process in a lot of ways, I wish more taxpayer stakeholders would have shown up, especially, again, reaching out to the non-parent community. It was not, I don't know, I saw a few of them there. They weren't, not a great showing, especially considering the ratio at which they go to the voting booth. But I talked with 5 people after the meeting, and I jotted down some quick notes. There was no sort of overarching theme out of the 5 of them. They each kind of had a little bit to say. But a lot of them said they feel like what we put up last time was sort of a Band-Aid approach. They were a little worried that these additions, while it met some immediate space needs, were not going to suffice longer than 5-10 years down the road. And of course, those are the people that believe we're getting the growth. And then we, of course, have some people that don't believe we're getting that growth. Somebody else said they would get rid of everything that they considered fluff on the plan, bells and whistles, they consider it. So they wanted to see us prioritize space, especially at the middle school level, because the kindergarten center is not going to help with that. They just kind of want to see STEM disappear and everything that they consider a non-essential addition disappear. They said, let's see, we need to negotiate better impact fees from the village. Agreed. Somebody else said they just kind of don't trust the numbers. So they were I said, what numbers? And they said they do believe we're getting the growth. They're not sure how much it's going to be. They're a little less trusting of numbers that we've given as far as operating expenses for the kindergarten center, construction costs for the kindergarten center. So it makes them question whether we can accurately estimate those expenses for any additions we would put on our current buildings. And then finally, somebody said they would like to revisit converting something else into school space instead of doing more on campus. They just felt like we're too cramped, we're too landlocked, traffic is too bad around the schools. So they would like us to revisit the adaptive reuse plan, especially now that a lot more buildings have come available in the village. And that was about it, but I did like the town hall style. I think probably before we would set any plan to paper, it's probably worth having a few more, see if we can get a few more bodies and voices and see if there's any large theme that comes out of it before we kind of sit down with a plan. And I agree with Wes. I think it would be helpful to have it more of a panel style, where Sonali wouldn't have to take all the heat. And, because I do think that was a good conversation. And I think what helps people, at least once I broke into small groups, I realized this, they have a lot of questions about why we do this or why we do that, and they're fair questions. And I think really if we could just get the chance to articulate that to a broader audience, it might just be helpful. I think they don't really, when they sit there and, somebody said, well, I don't really, I want to just keep it all on campus. I don't like the idea of a building off campus, blah, blah. I don't think sometimes that they're thinking about things like how much parking space we'd have to give up and how much playground space we'd have to give up and all that. That's our job to think about, but it's also our job to communicate that. If we can get a captive audience and communicate that, then sometimes they understand the decision, which allows them to put their trust behind it a little bit more. I think we're still lacking in the trust department a little. Not for lack of trying, but.
Julie?
A lot of the stuff that, everybody has kind of already said. There were some people who still, didn't quite believe the projections. There were majority, definitely knows that, especially in the middle schools, we're, busting at the seams already. But they just want to see additional space. They use the word, I heard the word fluff a lot. They don't want to see any extras. They feel like they already pay so much and they already put in so much that, all they're willing to pay for is, I don't want to say classrooms, but if it's a gym or if it's a whatever, but nothing extra. I heard some of the same things about trust, and I don't know how we change minds or how we go about thinking, how we go about fixing that. I'm not really sure. Mr. Robbins said, I think it would be useful to do one or two more of these, even if we come up with a loose idea of saying, well, we're just going to do additions, or we're going to look at adaptive reuse, however we do it. Because what we saw is, I mean, you're going to get a group of haters that might find each other, but you're also going to get people who do want to come together as a community. And I feel like the only way that we're really going to get a referendum passed is if we have the community lobbying for us. So they need to be able to find each other. And doing one meeting where some people might not be able to attend, and I did hear a lot of people watching it, which was good to hear too. I don't know if we have a total number of views, but I heard from a lot of community members that they did take the time. One of them said they were at a meeting in Libertyville and they came home and stayed up till 1 a.m. just to watch it that day. So, although the turnout might have not have been what we wanted, I do think that there's engagement and that engagement will continue. And so I just like the way the style of meeting worked. I'd like to do more.
And I don't think we need to do more. I mean, it's just my own opinion. You guys are welcome to jump in, but I don't think we necessarily need to do more in the way of a big projection screen formal presentation like that. I think largely, like you said, a lot of people that want to be engaged have watched it at this point or are going to watch it. I think it would be okay to do kind of a quick verbal recap, but I think really to get people to understand why this time we're opening it up to them and asking them, you know, I think is sort of important, because I do understand that some people do like the simplicity of having a plan put in front of them and then they can make the decision yes or no. And I'm sort of a very structured person like that, and I like that. But I think to do the same thing we did last time and expect different results, you know what that defines. Yeah. So I think we sort of need to find that middle ground between the input from the community making the plan and us making the plan.
Because, yeah, the other thing that I did hear, I forgot to say, was that people thought that there was definitely too much time spent on the old plan if we were there asking for input. They just thought, I mean, and to me it didn't really seem like a quick run through. It was a little bit more than I had expected.
Nick, did you hear back anything from people, community? You know, we had teachers, so did John or our team give any feedback on what they heard, any questions that were asked to them?
Yeah, there were several themes that came through. I spoke to several individuals and in small groups. Some, there was definitely a theme of some folks that want to support. They're looking for, give me something that I can rally behind and work with. So I do think you have some community wants to engage in supporting the district and get something done for the students. I heard that the video, I forget which one, somebody said the video was eye-opening for folks, and they appreciated that, because it's hard, you can't walk through the building necessarily during the day, so that they thought that was very helpful. I heard sort of similar things in that most of the folks that I talked to were, give us a plan and let us run. And one or two said, what feedback, you know, what feedback is needed, or what do you want from us to help guide that? So I think there's a balance there that you guys are picking up on to move. The teachers got nice accolades, which was very nice, that people recognize what they do for the students and that the value of the programs. I've talked to two individuals about just information on taxes and tax rates, and Abe was kind enough to respond to them via email and send some information. But just the idea, you've seen the sheets that show where Hawthorn is for revenue and where Hawthorn falls for tax rates compared to other districts in Lake County. And it's an eye-opening for folks when they see what other districts might be pulling for revenue and what the tax rates are. It's just how the system's set up. So I think that gave them a better understanding. Oh, I see. There's an inherent problem with how the system's set, but we can't get out of that system, so how do we work within those dollars? So those were kind of the big themes. I think people appreciated the presentation. They seem to appreciate, ask questions, and then they seem to appreciate getting to come down and talk with small groups and catch up on some things. But most important thing was, most of the folks that I talked to through that were, we want to help. How do we help? We know that the board can't campaign and the employees can't campaign, so how do we organize, or how do we get together? And just kept pointing to people, said, but go ask that person. They said the same thing. Just right now, introduce yourself and kind of get a sense.
The big thing too is time.
Yes,
they had to give. We have to give them time to rally.
Yeah, thank you. That was, I apologize. I forgot about that too. They said that they know if it's in November sometime in August actually is our date, but they were like, the sooner the direction or decision can be made, the better, because they have longer time to then help support and rally folks. You're right. That was a couple people did say that to me, that they felt the last time was a little bit rushed, and it impacted the ability to get some of the information out.
Well, I think
Abe, did anybody approach you? Did you get any feedback from anybody since you were there too at the table?
Yes, a couple people actually talked to me as well. There was a question about district boundary, which I addressed. A question about the actual impact of these bonds over time, and the concept that it's an incremental increase until 2023, and then there's a dramatic drop-off. So with the new bonds, it's just less of a savings. In 2023, there's a reduction for a $300,000 house of $227. The following year, it's an additional $493. So the concept is it's not going to cost more. It will the first few years, but then there's a dramatic drop-off. And so it's just to frame it in such a way that it's less, a reduction in the amount of savings is just less savings, but not a major increase after 2023. And with the delays, we're 1 year closer to 2023, by the way. So
sneaking up on it.
So the savings are coming 1 year sooner. And then just some analytics comparisons as far as the average cost per people and things like that. And that was it.
Okay. So kind of. So, I pretty much had the same. Anybody else would like to jump in? Anybody who was there? Any of the teachers who were there who had anybody reach out to them? I know a lot of our teachers were great enough to be there and to help us. All our principals were there. If anybody, heard anything that was different from what we said, please, jump in. I heard the same thing pretty much of what was said. So it was the same thing. They wanted to know more, bit more clarity. Now, I completely hear all of you guys saying about, we should do more town halls, and I completely agree. We'll do more meetings. If you saw in your packet, there's some dates that have been pulled up. These are the dates which are starting after spring break. It's not. It was in your board packet electronically. So, these were the dates that were pulled up. So it's every. If there's a board meeting this week, it's the following. So they've been spaced out in between the board meetings, kind of to have the meeting. So kind of is a less stress on all of us and our administrative team who has to be there too, because we don't all have to be there going forward. But my thinking was, since we didn't really get, this was a meeting to have ideas and stuff. And looks like from what I heard and from what you guys are giving feedback, it seemed like maybe we can start narrowing it down to 3 plans, 2 plans, 3 plans, whatever we come up with. Maybe not in the almost all the details, and then go out at the next meetings and give them, these are the estimates, and get their feedback on what that is, and then hone those plans down a little more, and then come up with our final plan that we'll go out with. But I think we need to start coming down to whittling it down to some plans, because keep doing meetings is give us your ideas when we don't really have anything more new or anything to present. And we need to, for running any sort of numbers, that we need to give DLR a directive. So I think if we come up with maybe one plan that has everything, but take some fluff off, or one plan in which we decide, whatever we decide, come up with 2 or 3 plans so we can have DLR run numbers, and then go out with those numbers at least a little bit and say, a $300,000 house will cost this much will be the bond, this is what the additions will look like. We can refine it. We will make clear that these are not refined plans, but once we get through the 2 or 3 meetings, see where the community actually wants, what they want, we will come back and refine those plans. Even those plans are not the final plans, but these plans will give us numbers to go out with. Because right now, the way we are presenting our old plan, because that's all we have, we don't have anything concrete to go. Anything we do, the numbers have changed because what we did and we ran numbers on construction cost was different. We have to give directive to get numbers, and we need to. So then when they choose it, We'll make sure that they realize that these are still plans in progress, but at least they are within certain frameworks that we can create. That is my idea towards it, of going forward.
So one of the things that I keep hearing is fluff. And that is the most undefined thing we've heard tonight.
You
and
get
that's,
it in the freezer, right?
it's white frosting, something called fluff. But I'm talking about the fluff that we've been talking about. So one person's fluff is another person's, hey, this is a thing we need. So I think one of the steps is to try to narrow that down a bit somehow. I don't know exactly how. To get, that was part of the desire, was try to get that input. What is your definition of fluff? If someone says, yeah, take half of this off, but which one? What exactly do you consider as fluff?
We really shouldn't use the term fluff.
Exactly.
The team put 2,500 hours into working this and gave a plan that said, this is a 10-year long-term plan. Fluff is not the term that's being used. There really isn't a lot
there
of...
isn't
There isn't a
any.
bells and whistles
Well,
in there. Now,
it
we
wasn't
might be able to-
Jason's word or my word. It's the word we're getting from the community.
Yeah,
So
I understand, but when we give it back to the community, we just reinforce that belief. Now, having a 10-year plan that's $42 million and saying this is a 10-year plan and it costs $42 million, coming back and say we cannot afford the full $42 million, how do we want to prioritize our needs?
What's your priority,
All
not what's your fluff.
everything in that plan addresses a need to deliver the best world-class product possible for our students. So I think if we can sort of rephrase away from fluff, it would be helpful because we're just reinforcing that. Now, people might say, I just don't think this
is a high priority. That's different.
Each thing addresses a need, and we need to prioritize the needs if we can't afford all of the needs, which is understood. But it would be, we're going to prioritize our needs in a different way. And let's say, let me use and I apologize for jumping in here, but let me use the Park District land as an example. There is a need to have space available for the district for outside activities, but also for future. So we're in a situation. It is perceived as a need from that group to have available land so we protect from potential issues down the road. But if you prioritize that, if I were to spend the money on that land right now, it would reduce how many spaces I could create. You would prioritize it and say, that is a later need we'll have to address later, because right now, I got to fit people into a classroom, if that makes sense. So I'm just...
I totally agree.
I apologize.
No, yes,
Reframe it
has
as
to
in
be
priorities.
Yeah. And I think as a group, we can come up, because we have to go out. So we have to start prioritizing it amongst ourselves. And we have to come up with, maybe we decide to, we at least need to come on the page together. Like, okay, we agree with that. Let's come up with 2 or 3 plans if that's what we can do. Run some numbers and then go out to town halls with those plans. Does that sound like a fair option to do as the next step? Because we going out and saying, give us your ideas, we came up with nothing right now. And we can't go out and doing this thing because we still don't have anything to present to them. Anything more than what we have.
Well, I don't know if we came back with nothing. I think what we didn't come back with is a super strong consensus, and I think part of that is because, first of all, I don't think the turnout was super awesome. I think not a lot of people stuck around to talk afterwards. I saw a ton of people leave the gym as soon as the sort of formal question and answer was done. But I think it would be beneficial to maybe have one more meeting where it's just town hall style, no plan put in place, because I'm sort of hearkening back to when we went to referendum last time, and we did some meetings in October at Town Line, and it seemed like there was just a ton of negativity towards the fact that this core team was chosen and worked in closed session for endless hours with really no community input, and taking this plan and putting it to people going, take it or leave it. There seemed to be a lot of resentment towards the fact that they were not included, made aware of, whatever. So I think if we...
There were 4 plans presented that day. So it wasn't like one plan.
No, I know.
Oh,
but I'm just saying,
so
like,
there
it
were
seemed
4
like
plans.
people
I
were
didn't
like,
pick
well,
that
wait, who determined that was necessary? Who determined that was important? Who determined, I remember a lot of people feeling like, well, you guys are saying it's a space issue, but look at all this other stuff, which we don't like the word fluff, but to them, that's what that was. It was going, you guys are saying there's a space issue. What does STEM have to do with space? So
it is
they're
a
not-
master facilities plan, and we'll go
I
out
know
and do the
that.
and we'll do
It's-
the
you're preaching to the
communication.
choir, but I'm just saying if that's the consensus in the community, which the vote reflected. We don't know 100% why everybody voted the way they did, but the vote reflected they weren't supportive of what we put out last time and the way we put it out. So I do think we need to do something different. And if we get the same problem after one more meeting where we kind of don't have a majority obvious answer in front of us, then okay, then maybe we sit there and go, all right, well, let's start with the framework of the last plan that we put out and work from there. But I don't think somebody's going to go, I would support 25 million, and the next person's going to go, I would support 50 million. I think you're going to get people that'll say, I will support it when it's the right plan. But, I talked to 5 people. I heard do adaptive reuse. This person said, keep it all on campus. This person said, build a new school building. I would have supported option A. That, we are going to hear a lot of that. So it's not that we didn't get answers. We got answers. It's just you're getting a lot of different answers depending on.
But that's the point. If we keep going out, I mean, we have to give DLR and all time to come up with those plans, come up with those drawings that we need to go out for each building, each school, each thing that we want. If you're going to keep hearing, do this, do that, and you have to understand, even if we get a decent turnout, similar to this time or the last time, and if it's all over the place, it's again, there will never be enough because there's still some part of the community that wouldn't have been represented, and they are going to feel that. So the question was, this was a plan well thought out by our core team, chosen by us. There is nothing that has, so we are taking their input, but we are going out and giving them 2 or 3 plans and say, what is it with these financial numbers? Because that is also a big part of what they will or won't support is what will you support? So your choice is to have another town hall, which we would probably do next month or after spring break. So then we're pushing it out by another month because I'm assuming DLR is going to need another month or so to run all our numbers tight beyond, whatever plan we decide to come up with. So hold on. So that is your choice, right? The town line is town hall is
I choose town line every day.
Town line every day. So that is it. Matt, what would your choice be? So right now on the table is make 2 or 3 plans or go complete town hall style again with no plan and see what we land up being.
I kind of lean towards another town hall, but I'd like to maybe tighten up that presentation.
In what respect would you want to tighten that presentation up?
I think we need to hammer the enrollment problem down because we still get a lot of people saying that we don't believe the numbers. Like
okay, those are the numbers.
I know, but maybe better slides. I'm just saying the breakdown of the schools per school so they can see it rather than all these chunks.
But it's still old information.
And
it's just packaging it differently, but it's still old
but
it's just still old information. So that's why I just want to get clear so we know where we are going with this.
The feedback I got from the one gentleman I think we all talked to, he almost kind of laid it out as give me a full plan again, and then kind of a in the middle of the road plan, and then the absolute bottom of the line plan, dollar-wise. Kind of broke it down into some.
So that would be 2 plans or 3
Right.
plans, like I said. So
that would be 2 from us. We've already got a $42 million. So.
yeah, but that plan is not working. So we have to modify it in some manner, right? So we'll modify that, and then we can come up with another 1 plan, 2 plans, whatever. So, but you have to tell me if you want town hall, what do you want to see different in the town hall? Or are we doing the same as we did last time, other than maybe run a better graph or a better number?
I would do a town hall and maybe kind of put the groundwork down for optional plans.
So that is
just to kind
Okay,
of.
can I
That is
suggest a
different.
compromise?
No. Let's see what others say. It's not a question of you don't have to let the others speak. I mean, it's just the 3 of us said something. So, Wes, where would you want to go with
Can I
it?
just add one thing?
Sure.
One thing that I heard from a number of people that we should keep in mind is the village is made up of a pretty big range socioeconomically. And there's a price point where some people will not support a referendum above a certain price. It might be helpful to, as part of what we do, to find where that is, because there's just some people that just can't afford a certain amount on their taxes. And they also speak about, there's a little confusion on asking for a referendum to increase the tax rate. But the fact is, every year their taxes go up because even if it's CPI, they're seeing an increase and they think the board is raising their taxes every year. So there's a price point where we're not going to get the support no matter how good the plan is. And
no, but that's what I meant. Like when we do 2 or 3 plans, we would do them at a different price point, kind of, like.
I think he's saying ask for input of what that price point
Yeah.
would be and kind of see
Can-
where we get the consensus for
And
that.
so at one of the meetings a year ago, a couple years ago, they did an interactive kind of like a vote or a feedback, immediate feedback. Use
Yeah,
your
that was
phone. You
Jason
say, I think Jason Lemke did that.
Yeah, he had a clicker.
We could
thing.
say, okay, here are 5 amounts monthly impact your taxes. Pick one. It just kind of gives us more information. Here's the most you'll pay, and then that's just one piece of information. It doesn't say what you're going to get for it, but it's just kind of what Jeff is getting at. Kind of get a gauge as to, okay, where are people lining up in terms of their socioeconomic, what are they willing to pay?
Although I like that idea, I personally wouldn't agree to pay $1 more without an idea of what that $1 was going to buy me. So I think
So it's not asking that question. It's asking from a economics point of view. People keep saying, I'm willing to pay, but this is too much. Well, how much are you willing to pay? And then we have to follow up with it. Yes, now if you tell us this is your budget, then we can work on what can we get for that amount of money.
Now, this
What can
was
we
gonna-
best
right? Like
provide
this was
for
going to
you?
be sort of the compromise I was going to suggest. Was last time we went at it with 3 or 4 plans, each of the 4 plans was pretty starkly different from one another. So we had the all on campus, then we had option A, which was to build an entire new building across from Elementary South, then we had the adaptive reuse over on Fairway Drive. Don't remember what the 4th option was, to be honest.
Stay
Stay the course. Okay. Again, not really an option in my book, but yeah, I get it. I sort of think what might be helpful as a compromise is if we take sort of one plan and show what that looks like at 3 different price points. If we do all that, here's the price. Now, if you tell me we won't support 42, but we'll support 32, then we prioritize, draft that same plan, but show what drops off when you drop $10 million. Then one more
priorities.
step down. What drops off when you drop another $10 million? So you could see, here's what you're going to get on different priority levels at different prices. And it still requires us to sort of prioritize, where our needs are. But
So we take our 42
I
million
don't know
and
that I would
drop
come
it.
at it with 3 different
Start that as our
concepts
base.
Huh?
Start that as use the existing 42 million plan as our baseline.
And then
Start going down and say, okay, either 10 or 5 million or however what makes sense.
if that's
in
the
terms
plan
of,
we want to revisit. Now, we did get a fair amount of feedback that people liked option A. That's why they didn't vote for option B. So I think we would have to take either one of those 2 plans, but yeah, you start dropping.
I think we would go with option B, because the one that we put on the referendum, and start tweaking it from there, because that was the plan.
And that's
which,
fine,
Which
but-
we decided was the best financially and from the decision the board made. So let's start from that and start tweaking from there.
Yeah.
So
Can I ask a question? So
yeah.
I'm trying to envision for my team. So the EFMP, if we were to take a good diagram, and I can work with DLR to make it better, make it bigger, make I'm talking about big posters, 5, 6 of them, put them on the wall in the gym, and then allow folks to go, and then there would be price points for, a gym costs this, and
Right.
the space, the land, the classrooms for Lincoln or whatever, to kind of price it out and say, the whole thing's 42, or we'd have them recalculate because it's
Right.
gone up a little bit. What would you reduce, or what would you remove? We'd ask them, what would you
no,
remove?
no, no, no. We're not asking them. We are
No.
doing that.
I think we would
Yeah.
do plan
So-
1, 42 million. Here's everything that was on option B before, or what? Maybe now it's 44 million. I don't
Yeah. So all of it in, and then we take
know. Number
some
2, it dropped down to 32 million,
Of what
except
some of the
now
priorities
you
we
lost
took
the
off.
STEM additions. Then plan 3,
if you take
you dropped
some
it
more.
to 22 million. Now you lost the STEM additions and you lost a couple gymnasiums. Like, you know, you start to
So
shake
we
out.
are the ones who do that.
Okay, I'm misunderstanding. So I would think then by the next board
Because
meeting.
otherwise people are just going to build what they want for their personal school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we
Yeah.
would have to prioritize and saying like, you know,
You
the
could
first
advertise it that way and get people out. The one with the most people from their school wins.
Like a bait and switch.
It needs
Yeah.
it needs to be
We have lots of
approached
fans then.
from what's best for
Priority
the whole
and what we
district.
need.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And
if,
still
if
the
people
dollar
are
amount.
looking at it from their own perspective or from the elementary school perspective, they might not realize that the kindergarten center is not going to help the middle schools at all in terms of enrollment. And so from a priority standpoint for the district, where we've got a space issue at the middle schools, that's pretty high.
Okay. So here's the thing. If we've talked about it for a while, so I'm going to shut this, I'm going to close this, but that is the plan. We seem to all agree on that in consensus. At the next meeting, we will all come back having read that plan upside down and inside out, and we'll start prioritizing it to see which numbers we can get. We can ask DLR to revisit some of the numbers. So, like, if they can revisit the old plan and they tell us that now the gym was which was supposed to be 2 million is now 3 million. So when we decide with a priority, like, okay, this gym is gone, then we know exactly to drop the number by 3 million right there, right? So next meeting, we'll come up with the list so we can come up into 2 or 3 plan. We will go out with the dates. The first meeting that is set up as, what is the date for it?
Well, April 5th. I actually went through these dates.
Yes.
And then I compared it to the calendar.
Yeah.
And April 5th, that's the same night as the PTO family programming for the Wacky Science Show at Aspen.
Okay.
So I didn't know if we wanted to look at it from...
Okay. So the thing is, but here is the thing, okay? Every other day after we come back, and I understand a lot of people might not be able to come, but every other week we are already committed to a board meeting. So if we move that, there's a lot of dates, and it also is availability of what is available from previous commitments of whether we have committed our gyms to some other place. Because Wendy ran these numbers. So I understand that something might conflict with it, but we are still going to have to run with, I'll have Wendy look at these dates again, but I think we're pretty tight on those.
Does it have to be at a school? It seems like other school districts are doing these meetings lots of places, libraries and coffee houses.
No, I understand, but the libraries, coffee houses, we don't have that big a coffee house, but library, and I thought that this was starting with, and we would, if you look, it's at one at each different school.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, hoping that trying to draw those crowds first. And once the schools are done, then we go out and do it the village and the other places. Because getting dates on village and library, they are so committed on their times, that's really hard.
Having our schools right on top of each other, I really don't think it matters if it's at Aspen or South. I don't think that anybody's deterred because they have to cross a street or walk across a parking lot.
No, I understand that. The question was also that if they come in, they can see the space for themselves. So that's why that was another reason to do it at a different building. Because then they can see the space if they want. Huh?
I don't think that makes sense.
When there's no students there, I don't know how well they can tell what's going on with the space, but
they're walking straight to the gym and straight out the door, so it's not like they're going through and really...
I think the schools have the potential to make people who don't have children enrolled feel a little uncomfortable. They shouldn't. They're public spaces just like anything else you pay taxes for, but I sort of think that potentially if you didn't have children enrolled anymore, maybe it'd be a little awkward to walk into the school. Like, I'd wish there was a more village friendly, if the village hall is booked, is there something else we could use? We use one of the golf course clubhouses with, like, they're both owned by the village. Like, there's something.
One of the things that on the date, regardless of kind of where the meetings are held, if these dates look fairly decent, one of the things that when we picked these dates out, when Wendy went through, there wasn't an event on that date. So I want to send this out tomorrow to the 18th, say don't put anything on the state if at all possible, so we don't have conflicts.
Right. Well, I was gonna, the April 17th date is fine, the April 30th, the May 10th was good, and I just didn't know if there was, maybe one of the board meetings, if could we, invite people to come at like, I don't know, say 6:15 or 6:30, maybe have like an extra half hour before the board meeting if people wanted to come in?
Yeah, if we don't have a closed session around one of those meetings, we can definitely do that.
Do we still need
they'll
this
stay.
number of
Huh?
meetings?
Sorry?
Said maybe they'll stay.
Do we still want this number of meetings?
We put them out right now
Right.
because the thing is, the plan was if we book them, then we start with 1 or 2 meetings. By the time you hone down the plan, you want to start getting to the rest of the days because you need to start communicating which plan was chosen eventually too. So maybe 1 or 2 dates would drop off, but right now this was just,
I think we need
dates.
to hold the place for now anyway.
Like, this was just
I
placeholder.
thought we were going to be publicizing all of these dates.
No, I'm
These
just
are
going to
just
get to the AT
potential
and tell them lock these
No,
dates
just-
out.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
we don't plan other school events.
All right.
So because
And
this
so that
is-
we hold our calendar open should we
Yeah.
need them. Yeah.
Right, and then
Yeah.
you can decide which ones you want to use.
And I think this is a good opportunity if we have these dates, not necessarily that we have to use them all, just to have these Q&A sessions where people really feel welcome to ask anything and know that they're going to get an answer, I think can draw people out more potentially than just, they know if they make a public comment, they can't get an immediate response. They know that if they write in, it's a wait for, Sonali is very responsive and that's a pretty good turnaround there, but they know it's not a real conversation. And so I sort of think we have the opportunity to build some of that trust and that communication and that transparency going forward if we're just willing to answer some questions and explain things where they don't normally hear an explanation. Maybe if they're tuned into every single board meeting, they hear sometimes the explanation, but there's also a lot of times a 2-week wait between a question answered and question asked and, so on and so forth. So I think it's a good opportunity for us, whether we present plans or don't present plans. I think just that town hall style is a good opportunity for us to build that conversation with the community going forward, going like, we're not trying to trick you. We're not trying, we're not trying to move the carrot if we say that, yes, we have space needs, but yes, STEM is probably a good direction for the 21st century. Like, we can actually have more than one need and one priority at a time. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to have that conversation and build that trust.
Okay.
Well, I just
Let's-
want to add one thing really quick. And so we keep talking about, well, we have to get moving because we have to do this because we have to do that. But the bottom line is that there's one goal at the end of this. And if to be sure that that goal is accomplished, it takes a little longer, then it takes a little longer. Like, we can't push.
No, we
So-
can't. Nobody's. I mean, I don't think.
I shouldn't say push. Maybe I should say rush. Like, I did hear trust a lot in the community. If we need to take a little more time to work on building that trust, whether it's a town hall or whether we come up with something else, is if we just keep moving forward and we end up with a failed result, I don't want to look back and say, well, maybe we should have slowed it down and tried to, work on community engagement first. So that's.
For those that are, especially those that are new on the board, as you're reviewing the plans, if you have any specific questions about anything in there, please feel free to email me or call me or set a time to come in. And 2 of you can come at the same time, 3 of you can't, but you can either come in or call or email. DLR is putting together a document with all the meeting notes and things from previous. I haven't got it yet but it'll be like a Dropbox type of thing that you could go to and review. But if there's anything on there that you have a question about, please feel free. Any board member can, but for the new ones, maybe you don't have some of those details because you weren't privy through all of that work. Just please let us know so we can try to get as much information for you as possible to help you make your decision on what you think might be a prioritized need.
Also, I don't want to create more work for Abe, especially without consensus of the board. But one of the questions that was asked last Wednesday was, where are our dollars going per pupil? Like, how are we coming up with the spending per pupil and our entire budget? And people seem to not really understand the day-to-day operating expenses of a school district this size. Matt wanted to tighten up the presentation. I think if we're going to present, it's a good opportunity to sort of answer those kinds of questions because I think there's a misconception in at least part
That
of the
you're getting paid?
Huh?
That you're getting paid?
The labor of love, everybody. I think there's definitely a misconception in at least part of the community that we are somehow like flush with cash that we're sitting on and instead we're going back to the taxpayer we're not flush with cash. Like, I think we do need to explain why we can't use all the reserves that are there, why that's not advisable, why the first bonds for town line are not recallable, why, you know, I think like all those things people don't really understand.
Yeah, we'll
I
do
think
a bit
it's-
more simplistic presentation of our budget, kind of. Maybe that will
People
help.
want to understand too how we're going to pay for the operating for the future of the whatever we decide.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next item is the kindergarten building update. Sorry.
Excuse me. Swallowed wrong way. Pardon me. I have a meeting on the February 28th with the village. The park district will be there as well. I'll have some of our professionals with me. It is a conversation with the zoning committee or the permit committee. Will be later in March. We'll actually go for the official approval. But this is starting the process. We want to have a pre-conversation with them, make sure if they see anything they have questions on, that we can answer those ahead of time before we get really into the official process. It's a good step to do to kind of get it. It's a nice plan. They've seen it, but it's a good way just to see if there are any issues, be electrical or sewer or plumbing or something like that, the layout of the plan. So I'll be meeting on the 28th over at the Village Hall with our team to go there. Also, give you a little update. I did meet with the executive director of the Victory Center last week to share the plans and go through that. I anticipate meeting with some of the residents, with the village and probably the library to explain what some of the new additions or what the plans are there so they get a sense of where they're at and hear if they've got concerns or ideas or suggestions. But that meeting went very well with the Victory Center, and it was nice to meet the executive director and kind of get that groundwork laid there to show through what we're looking at doing. There were no major concerns from that meeting initially, just the access road. There's just making sure people aren't speeding coming around Phillips and down the access road, and we'll look at ways that we can control the speed of cars going down that during the two times would be open for drop-off and pickup. So both those went pretty well. Also, Abe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the drawings are 75% complete?
Correct. As of today, they're 75% complete. Goal is to have drawings for issue for bid by March 12th.
And so those are coming along, and then we'll be working at the same time in the permitting, zoning, and the technical review with the village at the same time going through that process. Okay.
Next item is accounts payable timing. Abe.
Yes, thank you. So 3 times a year, we're in a situation in December, March, and May where there's a 6-week gap between accounts payable and the time vendors get paid. It's just the timing of the board meetings. So the following is a proposal based on the memo from February 14th. Hypothetically, we could send expense reports on Wednesday, March 21st. And so as we would potentially have a meeting, but we don't, the board would email questions by the following Monday, similar to what we did today. And once all of the questions were answered, we would process the accounts payable the following Monday, March 26th. The board would then approve the list again on April 9th officially at that point. So it would be a preliminary tentative approval pending receiving all of the APs. Any expenses you had concerns about, we would pull and not process them. But we would basically make the payments, and then the official payment, the official AP approval would happen in this situation on April 9th. The verbiage of the approval was attached in the memo. Do you guys have any questions? Any concerns?
Is this, I mean, I don't have a well-formulated question. Is this allowed? Like, are we allowed to sort of preliminarily have you process this before there's a
This is
approval
common.
open session?
In my prior district, we would cancel the July meeting, and so this was a standard procedure. So preliminarily, you're approving them pending receiving the actual AP, so you would all see each and every invoice to be processed. Any questions you would have would be addressed. If you didn't want any process, we would pull them, at which point we would approve them officially at the following board meeting. So you are seeing all of the bills, you're approving all of the bills prior to payment.
Can we just, I'm not doubting you.
Sure.
But can we just get a legal opinion? Because it would be something different than what we've done, and don't want to run afoul of Illinois School Code or Public Meetings Act, where the board is making a decision outside a public meeting.
Sure.
If the rest of the board,
You know, that's
Yeah, definitely.
That's my
Yeah.
concern.
Agree.
Sure, we can double check. Yeah.
Okay. The proposed 2018-19 Board of Education calendar, we discussed it last time. Any questions, anything else other, because we had, one of the concerns we had was the 3 meetings that we had. If, like, would we need to add something else at 7 o'clock in the morning to just approve our bills and stuff? So this was what Abe had suggested. We'll get the, the legal opinion back on this. But anything else on the calendar?
Well, I was just going to ask, I looked at what Abe had sent,
Yeah.
and then I looked at the dates again for the 2018-2019 board calendar. For the months of December, March, and May, could we push the meeting 1 week so that it would be, instead of December 10th, it would be December 17th, and then it would be March 18th, and then May 20th? Does that give us enough time to be here for the bills, or is it usually a little bit later?
Abe, Nick?
That would help. That would lessen the gap. So that would improve that amount of time in between AP.
Well, keep in mind that it might be 4 to 5 weeks from the meeting prior.
Right.
Right.
So it's 5 weeks prior and then 5 weeks.
well, along those lines, I don't know what business we'll have exactly during that school year, but, the December 10th to January 14th is a huge gap. Even though there's winter break in there, is a large number of weeks between meetings, and so, by moving it 1 week, as Wes indicated, we'd shorten that gap there. Same with at the beginning of the school year, August 27th to September 24th is a month, and we could. I know that normally we meet the second and fourth Mondays, but we could meet that other Monday in September when there's not a
So
holiday.
we meet on the 17th instead of the 24th.
Oh, would that be?
No, that's
or
a
meet
Tuesday
on,
or something.
I think it would be the 11th.
10th.
10th would be the Monday.
10th is an off.
That's
right?
Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh
I'm
Hashanah.
sorry.
I
We
think
don't have
that's at
school.
night. I don't think we have.
We don't have school that day.
Oh, we don't?
No.
I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Let me make sure I
we-
get to the.
Yeah. We
So
don't
Rosh
have school.
Hashanah is the 10th. We're out of school that day.
So there's no school, so we would have to meet on the 17th.
And we're out the 10th and the 19th.
So we could meet the 17th.
Yeah.
The 17th of December is good too. I just looked real quick that if you
So
wanted to.
then we would get rid of September 24th, make that September 17th. Get rid of December 10th, make that the 17th.
We'd meet on September 17th, December 17th, and May, what was that?
18th?
We would meet May 18th instead of the 13th.
Oh, yeah, it's almost
Or
a month.
May, I'm sorry, March 18th, and then it'd be May 20th.
Looking at May 20th.
That February-March gap
It's
is
long.
concerning to me. That's a really busy time of year for us typically. It's also Nick's evaluation time, and that's just a big gap. At that time of year anyway.
What do you mean? That's not that big.
February to May.
It's
February
3
to-
weeks.
Well, there's 28 days, right? in
So
February.
it's 25th through 17th. So that's only 3 weeks. 25th, right? We have the
Yeah,
next
we'll be on the
meeting
25th.
I've said it's 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, we're both saying the same thing. It's 3 weeks. I just think at that time of year, knowing what our agenda usually looks like in February, March, I think it's a busy time of year. But if you guys are fine with it, I'm not going to die over.
Well, so what are you looking to do instead?
That's a time where I would probably do a March 11th, and then if we need, do a quick meeting on the Thursday or Friday before spring break to approve bills, then I would probably do that. That's probably 1 month one time a year where I wouldn't go just one meeting for that month. But
We have one meeting, March, right?
yep, and this is the problem. It's presenting with the bills.
Any opinions, Jason?
So, if I'm hearing correctly, you would like to make the change for September and December to the 17th for each one of those months?
May to the 20th. So
The only question is March, but like I said, I'm not dying over that one. But
Well,
just
we
a
could
busy
get a clarification from our attorneys on Abe's suggestion that might be a month that you try that to see if you're comfortable with it. And then you could keep the 11th, possibly. But
Can I bring up something that you probably don't even want to bring up? So, okay, next March will already be a vote on your contract. If we are not ready to discuss that in February, because we don't typically do your evaluation in February, if we are not even ready to discuss that in February, you are now pushing discussions until March, the vote until April, where you are subject to brand new people who don't know you voting on your contract, which we've been told by IASB is not advisable. Again, it's just a suggestion. It's not written to stone, but
So March, we can leave it at March 11th, and we can add a meeting. There's nothing that stops us from adding a meeting as long as we add it within, we can add a 7 o'clock meeting on one of the days.
Fine.
To pay our bills. But we might not even have to use it if what we hear from legal is that it's okay. Because we are going to do it this March anyway, right?
I just think the agenda next March is going to look different. But like I said, I'm not going to die over it. I just think we need to.
No, but that's what we are going with. What your suggestion is to keep the.
It's not just for paying bills, though.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
Right, yeah.
I think the agenda in March is going to be important, and I think it's going to be hard to do in one meeting. In fact, it will be impossible to do all in one meeting. So
I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could adjust it so maybe we meet on the 4th and the 18th.
Then
we have the 4th Casimir Pulaski, though. We can't meet on a day off of school.
Oh, yeah.
Can we do it on a Tuesday? Does it have to be a Monday?
Does not have to be a Monday, no.
I mean, that seems like it would open up more opportunity. I mean, can we think on this a little bit and maybe not vote on it tonight, or is it something that has to be voted on?
I don't know if it is on. Is it on vote?
it's on vote today. I mean, you
We could push the vote, though.
Yeah.
Table it?
yeah, you can.
There's no,
Yeah, that can easily
no
be
motion.
done.
There's nothing to vote on. No one makes a motion. We don't.
Yeah.
Written down, but no one
But
makes a
so
motion.
far, September 17th, December
Just 'cause it's written.
17th,
May.
May 20th.
Mhm.
And then we need to figure out March because there are several key pieces in March. And then we'll bring it back to the next board meeting for further action, and by then we can get clarification from legal.
Okay. You want to do the student civic engagement, Rika?
Sure. All right, I sent just a draft sample letter for you. The item student civic engagement regarding Florida. There are two scheduled or announced or proposed student walkout days. One in March 14th and one, I believe, on April 20th. Still trying to get clarification on the one on April 20th. The one on March 14th is designed to be 17 minutes. The one on April 20th, there's some confusion on how long, if it's a full day or what. I shared with you a sample letter with you, and I thought it would be good for the board to have a conversation on this issue. One of the first and foremost things for our job in the administration is to keep the students safe. Same time, try to take advantage of learning opportunities, real life learning opportunities for students. I am myself concerned of students going outside the building on those dates, identified times, just because I'm afraid somebody out in the world may think there's an opportunity. But I don't want to shut down students that are voluntarily wanting to give voice to something they might believe in. So, looking at working with the administrative team to find some avenues in which we might be able to accommodate It is a political act too, and schools normally are neutral within those. So we want to make sure that we provide opportunities for students that volunteer. I'd like to do something. I have reached out to one legislator. I've got others I'm trying to get a hold of, and they have conflicts. But one of the ideas was maybe have some legislators come in, especially in March, and have a meeting with some of the students and let them discuss. But I didn't know the board had thoughts or opinions on this. I just wanted to open that conversation up. Like I said, you've seen the draft letter. I do have concerns on that day for the safety of students, if they were to go out, and just in location to the roads, one, but also just of what that day may hold across the nation for potential. But we don't want to take away that opportunity. It's a great opportunity, I think, for students to experience some civic engagement if they feel the need or would like to, for something that they've been growing up with. Just wanted some thoughts.
I mean, you know, because we're K, I think that if we were discussing it, it would be just really for the middle schools participating, if anything.
We've had one student at the elementary asking about it, and but really, I'm thinking mainly at the middle school, but at the elementary would mirror that we're not going to go outside. Maybe we'll sit down and provide opportunities for them to maybe voice. But mainly, I think it's at the middle school. I think high schools have a different issue than we do, but I do believe we'll have some middle schoolers that may want to be involved or participate in some way. Thoughts, concerns?
You know, with safety, I mean, safety obviously is the highest priority, and I know being on what you could call a targeted day, but, you know, we have our recess scheduled at every time where the kids are outside. I mean, I don't know if it really presents that much more of a safety risk. I mean, I'm not sure.
Recess hasn't been nationally publicized.
I know, but if you, I mean, they know the kids
I mean, that
are
would have to
outside
be
every
very
day.
specific to our district. I mean, that would be somebody who have knowledge and wherewithal about our district, or somebody who regularly drives by every day. I guess my concern would be, obviously, I'm, you know, all for civic engagement. Here we are, right? But is it advisable? Is it legal to require that parents sign their children out and escort them to the curb or whatever they're going to do if they participate in this? Because I don't want to put staff members in a position of having to do it and feeling vulnerable or unsafe if that's not something they themselves want to participate in. So
And sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
talking
go
to
ahead.
other superintendents, that process hasn't come out from any of them. They're looking at other ways, sit-ins within the building, things like that. I've reached out to some of them and asked, what do you think? I mean, if you send out a letter and say, you know, if your students want to participate, we need to have a permission for them to go outside. It almost promotes it in a way, too, that some of my colleagues were concerned about, trying to figure out how to handle this. But, yeah, I think that might be something like that. If we haven't really sat with our student leaders at the middle schools just to ask, is this something that's of importance? I know at some of the high schools they've started having these conversations to see, you know, what do you think is going to be occurring and how can we help provide a safe experience? But I think to go outside, if we found that we had large numbers, we might go to. We need to have permission from the parents so we know that your student is participating in this, and they're just not going outside. We would have to supervise no matter what.
I mean, and if we do something in the building, then you have to give people the chance to opt out of that.
Right. No, this is not a requirement. This would be.
Be a permission slip, whether
Be
it's inside or outside. I mean, in order for participation, the parent would have to consent.
The student says, I wish to participate in this, and let's say we're going to the cafeteria, they're going to do a sit-in, let's say. It's a safe environment. I can control that environment.
Yeah, well, some of the feedback that I'm getting at the high school level is that there might be some contractual issues with the staff, and if it is a political event in any way, then the staff won't be participating at some high schools. So if that's the case in our district, then we really need to look at security and keeping our students safe, foremost. And maybe that means confining it to indoors.
And I have not heard that from folks, so that's good. That's good feedback. That's something new to know into.
Because it also could be a scheduling or a logistical. If some kids want to go out and there are different classes, different things. I mean, it becomes, you're disrupting all the classrooms. You're trying to manage all the students because if somebody has to go out with certain number, you can't leave the other 10 in the classroom. And, and if it's just 10 from each classroom, we can't, it becomes a logist. So we might need to find out maybe, they go to the gym or, where at least we could have them supervised, but also logistically in the scheduling of it, be available so that because we can't leave the other 10 just sitting doing something.
Right. It's another reason why if they are going to truly walk out, my child wanted to truly walk out in the middle of the day, I'd have to go sign them out. Like they can't just walk out. So I think, that's another potential.
Let me work with the administrative team then and see. I wanted to give an opportunity for the board to share thoughts or ideas. And
I mean, I think giving them an inside opportunity, a place for them to go to, makes sense. Also gives them a chance to talk to each other and voice, why are we actually doing this? Because I think a lot of the participation is like, oh, Jimmy's doing this. I'll go walk out with him. Why? I don't know, because I heard something. And a lot of the conversation is like, I'm following along. I really don't fully understand what's going on. We provide some context to why are you doing this? You have some, you have skin in the game here. So try to understand, have the kids get more engaged into saying, either bringing in a elected official or policeman or somebody to try to engage them and say, okay, you have concerns. What are they? What do you want out of this? So that it's more than just, here, we're outside, high-fiving our friends.
Kind of get a group think sometimes.
Have some more context into what they're doing, what they're trying to accomplish, and a little more depth into that. And I think by providing them with a gym or a cafeteria, we say, okay, if you want to protest or you want to do something, go here, but then make it meaningful.
Sorry,
I said I wouldn't mind hearing from the building administrators an opinion from them.
We haven't had a chance to really sit and have a discussion with it yet, but so right. They're more than welcome to. Rob or Robert.
You guys have any opinion? Anything to say?
Do you either one of you want to share an opinion on this particular topic, or would you like to wait until later? So it's on our agenda tomorrow evening.
Okay. The next item is Press 96. This is the last one. Yippee, we'll be done with this one. So, the next section of Press 96, the next set of policies are modified or changed or updated because the term ward is eliminated by laws to refer. So this is for children who are under the care of DCFS. Instead of ward, you need to use the term youth in care because the term ward is viewed as disparaging and ostracizing. Because of that, we had changes in policies for the rest of them. So the first policy that got changed because of changing of the term ward to youth in care is policy number 5:250. This is leave of absence. This is page 57 to 62 in the policy packet. And in this policy, the policy is essentially unchanged. It's just the footnotes have been changed. Anywhere the word term ward was used, that has been changed. The next policy is policy 5:330. This is about sick days, vacation days, holidays, and leaves. And this is page 66 to 70 of the policy packet. And this policy is also unchanged. Only the changes have been to the term ward. The next is 6:235. This is an Administrative Procedure 1. It's an exhibit. It's a student authorization for access to district's electronic networks. And 625. And the procedure has just been updated just for the use of the term ward. Nothing else has changed in the policy. The next policy is 6:250. This is an exhibit. This is on page 30 to 31 of AP, the administrative procedure. This is resource person and volunteer information form and waiver liability. Again, in this one, the exhibit has been updated essentially just to change for the word, change of the term. The next one is 7:15. This is page 106 to 109 of the policy packet. Student and family privacy rights. And the policy and the footnotes are updated essentially for the use of the word, use of the term ward in the thing. The next one is 7:60. It is an administrative procedure. It is page 38 to 40 in establishing student residency. This is an administrative procedure, and in this, 7:60, the procedure has been updated, and in which, in establishing student residency, your current bank statement is allowed, and this has been added, while the mail received at the new residence has been deleted, because anybody can just mail a packet at the residence, and that doesn't count towards proof of residency. So that term has been eliminated, but a bank statement is allowed, and that term has been added. The next thing is 7:275. This is orders to forego life-sustaining treatment. This is page 145 and 146 of the policy packet. And in this one, the policy has been updated essentially for the use of the term ward. The next one is 7:300, Exhibit 3. This is authorization for medical treatment. This is in the administrative procedures, page number 56. And this, again, the exhibit has been updated for the use of the word term ward. Then we have a miscellaneous set of policies that needed to be changed, so each one is a bit different. The next one is 4:10. This is fiscal and business management, pages 8 to 10 of the policy packet. And in this, I don't think anything has changed. Hold on. And the policy is essentially unchanged. There's only some footnotes that have been updated. The next one is 4:15. This is identity protection. This is page number 11 to 14 of the policy packet. And this is a policy in which it distinctly states, as well as we should be consulting with an attorney before adopting this policy. The district complies with the Identity Protection Act. The Identity Protection Act places greater limits on the use of social security numbers than federal law. And they, in the whole policy, as well as all the footnotes, they said that consults with an attorney before adopting this policy. So we'll wait for our legal counsel's opinion on this. There are only limited exemptions where a district might need a student or their guardian's social security number. And if we decide to include the identity protection, it mandates that we need to include some distinctive language. So we need to get legal counsel on that. So 4:15 needs legal counsel. So anyway, we don't approve all these policies right now, so we'll figure that out next time. 4:80, this is accounting and audits. This is page 15 to 18 of the policy packet. The policy is unchanged. It's accounting and audits. The next one is 4:110. It's an administrative procedure 2. This is in administrative procedure packet, page number 15 and 16. Bus driver communication devices, pre-trip and post-trip inspection, and bus driving comments. It's just an administrative procedure of that they cannot be on their cell phones. The only time they can be if the bus is stopped and they are calling in for help and stuff like that. 6:20. The policy hasn't been changed actually. It was just a 5-year review. 6:20. This is page number 71 to 73 of the policy packet. This is school year calendar and day, and I don't think anything has changed. The policy essentially is unchanged. 6:300. This is graduation requirements. Policy number 94 to 96. This is mostly graduation requirements for high school, so it's been updated to reflect some of the other changes that were there. doesn't involve us essentially because they're updated. 7:150, this is agency and police interviews. This is page number 118 on the policy packet. And this policy and the footnotes are updated to align with the same laws that were discussed in harassment of students prohibited. So some of the things that were updated before have just been 7:70. This is attendance and truancy. This is policy packet 114 to 117 of the policy packet. And the policy and footnotes are updated to incorporate excusing a student from attendance whose parent or guardian is on active military duty. So there's a protocol for excusing student from attendance when the parent is an active duty member of uniformed services and has been called to duty or is on leave or has immediately returned from deployment. And beginning July 2018, district collects and reviews chronic absence data and determines systems of support and resources needed to engage the parents and the students so that they are not chronically absent. So that is what the policy has been updated for. And the next last one is 8:30. This is an administrative procedure in the definition of child sex offenders. This is policy pages 84 to 87. And in this, they have actually they have given different definitions of a child sex offender, and any violation of criminal code of 1961 was the only thing that was there before, but they've also added any violation of criminal code of 2012, and that statement has been added, so that's why the policy got changed. And that is it for press packet 96.
Thank you, Sonali.
So we will wait for legal counsel to tell us about 4:15. That is about the only press packet that we needed some background information from or updates from. The next is the staff and administrator survey that we had talked about last time. You received a few of the changes that were made by Robin. So, Matt, any comments?
No, I thought she did a great job.
Thanks, Matt. That was simple.
Jeff.
I'd like to see it aligned a little bit more with the Human X survey in terms of the grouping. One of the objectives that we had was to be able to compare in these groups that weren't included in the Human X survey, kind of apples to apples. So I guess I'd like to see it, the questions kind of broken out and in the same type of grouping and categories that we had for the Human X.
So I would love to also, and I know this came up at the last meeting, but since I'm not allowed to see Human X for copyright reasons, I can't magically group those the way
I think what we said at the last meeting was that you could see them. You maybe can't use the identical questions, but I think we had a lot of the questions available and you could look at them. I thought is what.
I thought the only ones we had available were the top 5, bottom 5.
They don't want it distributed electronically, digitally, so you could come in. We can print out a copy and you come in and look at those.
Okay. Does anybody else feel the same way as Jeff? I don't want to redo stuff based upon one.
So you're just saying take what we've got and regroup them?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the Human X survey, it was broken down into 4 areas and then what they called 15 dimensions. And looking at the information that I had, I was able to look just with I didn't have the whole survey, but 25 of the questions, I guess I'd just like to see it match up a little better.
Okay, well, last time the feedback was to me to get it to 20 questions or less. So if we want it to mirror Human X, that's fine, but then people need to decide, is the priority to mirror Human X, even though, obviously this isn't exactly the Human X survey, or is a priority to keep it to a manageable number that people will actually respond because I think otherwise we needed to pick our one favorite question from each dimension on Human X and use that. Because as soon as you start with any of the redundancies and stuff, it's going to be way more than.
I'm good with where we're at, so.
So I understand what you're trying to do, but we're not going to get there regardless of, at least I don't think we'll get there regardless of how we order these. Since we don't have the HumanX tool, we're not gonna be able to get that level of, okay, these 4 means this and it's gonna put them in this square here. We're not doing that. So just rearranging the questions and reordering them, yes, we may be able to kind of get a gauge as to these 4 mean generally this thing.
Well,
we can do that on
at
our
least
own.
cover the topic areas.
So then, if that's what we want to do, then we can say, okay, questions 1, 2, 8, 9 cover satisfaction. These 5 questions
It
cover.
seems like some of the questions were more heavily weighted to where we weren't asking some of the areas that we did in the human. So just.
I mean,
my
I think
overview.
what my understanding was anyway was this was a way to get some kind of immediate feedback from the people that have not been included thus far on HumanX, and that looking forward to HumanX or whatever tool we might use in the future, the idea would be to
We'll include them.
them on that.
So this is
and
kind
that
of
this is to bridge that gap between now and whenever, because usually we don't get those results till like November, December. So this gives us some kind of immediate feedback and an immediate chance for them to have a voice.
With
but
without the in-depth analysis that HumanX does.
I mean, I would
because
love to do
we
the
don't have
in-depth
that.
analysis,
We're not
but
going
like,
to do that.
to have that run right now is, I mean, it's a very expensive tool to use. So to have it run for a small percentage of the staff is probably unrealistic.
We're really not doing any analysis other than this question, here's where the numbers lie. This question, here's where the number lies.
Right.
We're not saying these 5 means this.
I don't think any of us have the expertise to say these
Exactly.
5
We
mean
don't
this.
have
I
that.
think it's really an
That's
opportunity
way
to sort
too-
of see the feedback. You can tell generally what a culture, climate, atmosphere is.
Right.
Yeah, take a pulse. There's space for comment. Are we seeing any themes in the comments? Is there a consistent message here? If not, that's probably a good thing, right? If we have a consistent message, that means everybody's either really happy with the same thing or really pissed off about the same thing. But I think my understanding was this was sort of something to bridge the gap between now and 8 or 9 months from now.
They can be included in the next round or whatever.
Right.
Jason?
So the first item is, do we go with admin question set 1 or option 2?
Or a hybrid if there's
Or a hybrid of
specific
those.
ones you want to see jump from one to
So-
the other.
I'm leaning towards admin 2
Okay.
with some changes.
Which is the admin 2? Can you tell me?
She sent an option 2.
Yeah, I know I have it printed out, but I don't remember which one.
Oh,
was.
you printed it out. It was the one that looks very similar to the other one.
without the bold in the top.
One has 23 questions, one has 19 questions. Which one is number 2? Can you somebody tell me?
23.
23 is option 2.
23 is option 2.
23 is option number 2.
Mm-hmm. And I can definitely reorder these so that they look like questions that sort of consistently go together. These were not necessarily in any particular order. It was some cutting and pasting that happened from the feedback I got last.
So I prefer admin 2, the option 2. I think it's more similar to the one for the other one, the staff not included.
Definitely part of that.
There's a handful of items here I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
So number 2, I think we can be a little bit more specific and say, since the district already went through our strategic plan, and in there are already goals. So we've already gone through the goal setting process. I think what you're talking about here is the individual goal setting
Right, personal
process.
goal setting, yeah.
So we can either add
Add
in
that.
the individual or in the personal goal setting process to make it more clear
Okay.
as to what that's about. Question 7, which is the same as 6 on the staff not included survey. District understands the taxpayer's needs. I'm not sure staff or administration has that insight unless they're in the district or knows what the district wants. We're asking an opinion about a second party's view of a third party. It just seems a little removed as to the basis of answering that question.
Okay.
I would like to see
Is there
that.
consensus to get rid of that one? I can literally delete.
So number 7 and number 6.
Yeah, let's strike it.
Number 10,
Okay.
which is the same as number 8 on the other one. What we're doing with this question is we already have objective comparison.
True.
So what we would be doing is we'd be replacing objective comparison with subjective comparison. So I don't think that helps us in any way.
Other than perception is reality.
No,
They perceive
not-
themselves to be of.
But it doesn't tell us anything. No. Because what are we going to do with it? So if we have objective information for comparison purposes, that's in terms of what we would do as a board, that's what we would use going forward. Right? Or
Would
when
you be
would we
interested-
ever replace subjective with objective?
Not replace, but I mean, I could reword it. I think what I'm sort of what I was getting at here is, do people feel that they are being adequately compensated? They feel that they are adequately valued for what their effort is, what their worth is, which is a slightly different question along the same lines as far as impact.
Yeah, I'd rather go with the information that we have, which is more objective than using subjective information to what end, I guess, is what I'm getting at with that question. What would we do?
Just, I mean, one of the things you said you wanted to know was, what's the atmosphere? What's the climate? That's atmosphere.
No,
People
that is
feel-
job satisfaction. This has
not
definitely to do
satisfaction.
with. This
That's
is not
just
job satisfaction. This is totally towards salary.
Is there
and-
something that impacts your job satisfaction more than feeling adequately compensated?
Yes.
Okay. Where do you work?
Here.
Other than an extremely voluntary position. Okay.
But I don't know what the
If
rest
that's
of the
a
board thinks.
consensus, I'll remove it.
I think there's value to what Robin says in knowing, even if the employee is adequately compensated or fairly compensated compared to surrounding districts, which we do know. I think there's value in knowing whether they think they're not. Whether
But
that,
what are you going to do with it?
I'm trying to
Well, then
understand
what are you
would
going to do
what's
with
the
any of
board
it? And
action?
just forget the whole thing. The whole idea is to engage.
It's a work atmosphere or a survey to gauge the issues, positive and negative, that are affecting our employees. So,
Like, P.S., none of these are things I made up out of thin air. These are all things from
I understand.
templates of
Yeah.
other employee satisfaction questions at educational institutions. I took none of these from just the corporate world. So these are questions that people are asking of their staff. I don't have HumanX in front of me to know whether our teachers are asked a similar question, but I would have to think amongst the 80 questions or so that they're asked, there's got to be some that say, you feel like you're adequately compensated.
I'm sure that's asked. I'm just trying to understand what we as a board would do with it. In the same sense that when we ask the district and the administration to do the HumanX, it's not just do a survey just to kind of get the answers. It's now they have an action plan that they come out of that. What's going to be our action plan after we look at this? So some of these I can say, yeah, if there's a high number of this or a low number of this, we can work on certain things.
Okay.
This item to me is not something that tells us what we can work on.
well, I think it does, because if a large number of employees think they're not being paid, compensated
And-
fairly,
Okay.
but they really are,
then it's just an education thing that
Yeah,
we would
that's
that
right.
would be part of our
That's
follow up
right.
then.
And then they say, "Oh, we are." So
Or the other way around.
Jason's like, let's skip the question and just do that part anyway.
Yeah, let's just do that. It's there. Okay.
Can we just do a quick show of hands as who agrees with Jason so that I know whether or not to get rid of this question?
I agree with Jason.
Just you and me.
That's not enough. All right.
But I think it needs to be reworded.
I can definitely reword it. Reword page perception of fair compensation. Okay.
All right, 20. Is hard.
What did you say? Sorry?
20, number 20 on admin 2. That's somewhat similar to 14.
Oh, I don't think they're similar at all.
No.
But in 14, how would you know if your has been communicated?
Because they watch the board meetings.
That is not necessarily all the time. That is not an effective, if there is something personal, that's not going to come up at a board meeting. How would you know that
Personal. I'm not saying personal. I'm not saying,
Well,
did he bring me a latte from Starbucks?
There's communication outside the board meeting that staff would never be aware of.
Yeah, and they would never know. So I don't know, how would they know that?
I think when Nick comes to the meetings and says, for instance, with the FMP, here's what our principals are stating are our priorities within their buildings. Did he effectively, accurately, honestly communicate what they gave him? Did he not? When they see whether their needs are met or not met, if it's something that they've, let's say, asked for, wasn't given, what's the message back to them? Is the message back, hey, I took this to the board, they said no, sorry? Was it, hey, I haven't brought that to the board yet, but I'll be happy to ask? Is it something where they don't need a board decision anyway, so it has nothing to do with it? But, I would think they would have an opinion as to whether or not their particular building needs and are being represented.
The building needs, not my needs.
Okay. I didn't mean my personal needs. I sort of thought we were all under the understanding that
No, but then
this was
this needs
about
to be
work.
reworded.
What would you like to see in place of my?
Building needs, student needs, because
So add in building. Now, how did the people that sit in the district office answer that question? Because they're getting the same link.
I thought that was the second one, but the other one was, this is just the administrators, right? Or this is the
Well, they are administrators.
Yeah, so the district office, so my
Okay, well, they don't have a building. They don't have a
departmental
student
needs?
body.
Or it's like departmental needs?
Okay.
Or
Okay.
Jason, what more?
So back to 20.
Mm-hmm. 20,
That
I
one.
think, is where the more personal stuff comes in.
Yeah, problems, complaints, or concerns. Would they ever come with a complaint? Or is it just concerns and problems? I mean, it
Compliments. I'm gonna put down compliments.
I don't know that approach is something that the board wants to encourage. Anyway.
exactly. So how do we, I think this question is getting at something that, what are we trying to get out of that one?
See, and it's interesting that you say that. 'cause
That's why
actually,
I
in
think
my
14 makes sense.
own opinion, this is just my opinion, I sort of thought 20 was sort of the catalyst for this entire project, which is the understanding or the supposition that there seems to be this line drawn between us and the staff, and where can people feel comfortable coming to us, where can they not? Because what you were saying is basically people would feel comfortable to us. They've come to us in the past when it was a different superintendent, blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, but I think that they would not feel comfortable coming to us, and I think they should. Doesn't mean we're the first stop. There's a chain of command, but if they needed to, would they? Or are we just supposed to guess based upon retention and this and that what the pulse is? I mean, well, yes, I mean, that's why I have 19 in there, because really the stop would be HR
Yes,
if it was
19 makes sense. That's
okay. Then what if
process.
What if it was about Lynn? What if it was about, you know, like at some point would they feel comfortable coming to the board? I mean, we have to have some kind of collaborative environment without being the world's problem solver. So I can tweak it a little bit, but I sort of actually thought number 20 was kind of the catalyst for this entire
I
thing.
don't want to see that disappear.
I think it was in your mind, but we've
Yeah.
had a couple of discussions in that, and I don't think it was
Okay.
the consensus of the board.
All right.
I mean, is it the consensus? I mean, what does everybody think?
I think some of the other questions get to what you're talking about.
I don't think so.
14
That's
gets a part of it. 20
I don't think so at
19.
all.
Okay.
So do we just want to take, I mean, see where we're at? Are we keeping 20 or getting rid of it? I'd like to keep it.
Jason, take it, reword it.
I thought 14, in my mind, 14 covered the gist of what that was trying to do. So I would say get rid of it.
I think it's totally different asking them whether the superintendent communicates their needs to the board versus would I personally feel comfortable taking a problem to the board?
So Jeff, you obviously want that.
If they have a problem with
So
Nick,
you
they're
want
not
20
going
gone?
to communicate it to Nick.
Let me just see where we're at.
Bess, do you want to take it off? Do you want to leave it in?
I'd like to leave it.
Matt?
I want to leave it.
That's 4.
We to leave it with complaints in there. The
And
words.
take out.
That I would probably
I
take
can
off.
take out the word.
Any other? Jason?
What
No, just in the admin option
Yeah.
2, because I have some that I need to discuss on that option 2. So if
Okay.
you're done, I'll
Not sure we're going to get much answer.
Huh?
Is no answer is also an option, right? They don't have to pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
There,
It's not gonna force
I
them,
believe
right? So we
Survey
can
Monkey
set it
will
up.
allow you to do.
To not answer a
Yes.
question. I'm not
Or, I mean,
thinking.
I guess if it doesn't, you can add
A do not apply.
Or
You know,
prefer
not to answer.
Whatever.
Yep. I'm just thinking some of these we might not get a lot of answers.
Might not.
Fine. Don't know until you ask.
That's the problem with pretty much any survey. Sometimes people see it for different things.
So, go back. Second one, we are adding the personal in, right? What Jason said.
Number 2.
Yeah. Isn't number 4 somewhat similar as 1? Gives useful, constructive feedback and gives praise and recognition.
Slightly different, but that one I'm not going to argue. I can either combine it if you think it's not going to be. I don't know. I did once have a boss, for instance, where I did feel his constructive criticism or feedback in general was constructive, but he was never one to give out a pat on the back. And that was okay. I was somebody who was okay with that. But I think that's where the difference lies between number 1 and number 4, but that's not one I'm going to fight over.
Anybody else? Any other opinion on that? Number 1 and 4?
I could knock 4.
We did have some short notice, and I don't know what your plan is in terms of this being the final wording, but I would like to have the opportunity to provide some additional edits and then see another copy. So,
yeah.
I mean, this can't be the
I
final
don't
say so
know
anyway, because
that-
I have to still go back and.
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we need to come up with the final wording right here.
Okay. So 6 and 7 we are striking out, as Jason said, right?
6 and 7?
7.
7.
It would be 6 on the
First copy.
Oh, sorry, I can't open.
Staff.
I can't look at 2 at once. It's too. Can we
Yeah.
stick with the admin survey 2 for right now?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I thought.
No, yeah, just 7.
on the. Those are the same question.
I know, but I can't look at the 2
Right.
surveys at once and then actually come up with the right edits. So
So which one are we striking? We are striking.
striking
out-
number 7 on admin option 2.
Okay, I thought we were working off option 2, so that's fine. the number 9, the curriculum in the district is the best it can be to meet. I mean, I don't think the best it can be. You want to ask about the curriculum, that's fine. I think it needs rewording. The best it can be is, I think that's extremely subjective.
No one should be satisfied, right? Let's try to improve.
Yeah,
It's never
so
going to be
what
the
was
best.
I
adequate?
The curriculum of the district it meets the needs of all the groups of the student. I mean, it
So the
doesn't have to
curriculum
be
in this district meets the needs of all subgroups of students.
yeah.
Okay.
What does it mean by the, so, I mean, we have, as Jason says, everything is at 3. Anything more than that is, we're going to strive for better. The number 12. Information and knowledge are shared honestly and openly within this district. I think it needs to be reworded because that feels like a confidentiality issue. If you're sharing all information very honestly and openly, it needs a rewording pretty strongly out there, I feel.
Do you think that there's currently an expectation that anybody would be getting confidential information and they're...
I don't know. I mean, that sentence, that's why I said it needs to be reworded. I mean, I don't have a right answer on top. It just seems to be kind of... Huh? Sorry?
She said in instructions will be use common sense when answering.
The next one also,
Well, wait, do you have a suggestion for the wording? Or is it just that you don't like it?
I feel it. What are you trying to get at that? Maybe that'll help me come up with the exact wording because.
Well, like we ask the rest of the staff when they take the Human X, for instance, it's one of the questions that kind of stuck in my mind. We ask them if they feel like in on things that happen at the district, which is really whether or not they get information shared openly and honestly.
Want to take out
so
honestly?
I can.
I don't know.
So, I mean, I can literally make it the same one that we have in the Human X survey, except for copyright reasons, I was trying not to literally word it exactly the same. But it's getting at the same idea, which is, do I think the information I need to have is shared with me?
See how you can copyright a survey question.
I don't either. But that was the
But I'm not a lawyer. I'm just
me
like,
neither, but that was the explanation given to me in the fall when I asked to see the entire survey.
I can see copyrighting the final results because that's now analyzing the data, but not a specific question. Like, how do you copyright a sentence?
Okay, we gotta move.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like you're always saying to us, don't give me a problem if you don't have a suggested solution. What's your suggestion for number 12? If you don't like it, that's cool, but I need a suggested change because off the top of my head, I'm not coming with one unless you want me to literally say the same thing the Human X survey says. That could be a suggested change. I feel in on things happening within the district. The information and knowledge I need are given to me openly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. The 13th also needs to be reworded. Like, I think that is. I'm afforded the opportunity to give feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Would be better than those two sentences together.
Okay. What do you want to say, Julie?
Yeah, there got two different thoughts in 13, I guess.
Okay.
On 15.
You want me to say honest feedback is encouraged without fear of repercussion, or I can offer feedback without fear of repercussion and just get rid of the first sentence?
I'd be good with that.
Anybody else have thoughts on
I
it?
need more votes before I can delete or add or,
I mean, I think that the second question is more important or the second portion is more important, so I'd be okay with removing the first. I'm fine with it the way it is, but.
Is everyone okay with me removing the first portion of that?
Yes.
Okay. Next.
The 15 is the same as 11. I have the resources I need to do my job well, and the professional development, which is the resource provided, is worthwhile use of my time. I mean, they need to be either combined or something. I mean,
Well, they have a lot of resources outside of professional development.
Yeah.
They have curriculum, they have staff, they have a lot of needs outside of professional development.
I mean, I think the professional development piece is important.
We spend
so
a ton
then
of money
use
on
of
it.
my time. I mean, sometimes you're required to do it. So use of my time, I don't really.
Right.
So then take that word off of use of my time. Like professional development provided
Is worthwhile.
is geared towards the student achievement or something. That's what we are providing this professional development for, and they have to do it for. It's a professional survey that's going on with our name on it. That we can't just leave it on common sense. I mean, we've got to work
I'm
on
not
this.
suggesting we leave it on common sense, but I do think there's a certain amount of understanding. You know, I think they all understand that professional development and resources aren't necessarily the same thing. I think a worthwhile use of their time, I mean, we do ask them to spend a fair amount of time in professional development. Do they think that time is well spent? It may be very much geared towards student achievement, but did it actually affect outcomes? Did it teach them something they didn't already know? Is it something they can take back to the rest of the community and, you know, learning community and share it? Like, but I can definitely reword it if people want. I
like it the way it is. I think it's getting towards the use of time there, because we do spend a lot of time on it.
And money.
We're leaving it, yes?
Yeah.
So then in 15 and 16, isn't it the same? The amount of work I'm asked to do is reasonable?
No, that's all the
No.
other work.
Completely different.
If they spend 10% of their hours in a school year on professional development, the other 90%, all that other stuff.
You have to understand, this is going to every single administrator and stuff. So if they're asked to do the work towards student outcome, I mean, they might be asked to do the work because that is what our district goal and strategic plan is. I mean, if they're asked to do the amount, is it reasonable? Is it the work that is geared towards outcome? So I'm kind of confused.
This is the amount of work. Do they have too much on their plate or not? That is how I read this one.
Yes. Because then in the parentheses it says, you know, if you believe it's not reasonable, please comment as to whether the amount of work is at all.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, Sonali, but I think that we can't be afraid to ask a question just because we're afraid of what the answer might be.
No, it's not a question of asking afraid, but this is a professional survey, so I want to make sure that the language we use is competent enough to go with the Board of Education survey. It can't be, it needs to be a bit tighter. That's my goal on this thing. It's like it can't be,
So you don't like the word reasonable?
Yes, I don't like the word reasonable. It just feels, that's what I'm looking at the whole survey is. I wanted it to be tight, professional, and that's why like some of the words or some of the sentences, though they convey the message, is not something under the title of Board of Education survey being put out.
Okay. Does anybody else have an opinion on this question?
I think it's fine.
Yes, yeah.
Just can't come up with another word other than
Well, I mean,
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
21. Why are we asking very satisfied? Why is the word very satisfied? What does that mean? I mean.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question because you get you get your 1 through 5, so 5 is very satisfied, right?
Yeah. So like.
I could take out the word very.
Yes. Yes.
We'll lose the emphasis.
And the last question,
No.
23.
Can we make it extremely?
Super.
And
I am unconditionally satisfied with my
All right,
job.
let's move on,
Sorry.
please.
On 23, I do not understand why we are asking that question.
Wow.
I'd like to
I
know
sort of
that
thought that
answer,
was like the
Ms.
holy
Goya.
grail. I think this is a question where especially people might check that box that says unwilling to answer,
Yep,
don't want to
that's
answer.
my point.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
But-
fine if they do. They can do that. But if anybody's going to answer, I'd
Then
like
that-
to see it.
Then that information tells us nothing.
I don't think it's going to give us anything.
What if you got 6 out of 10 people saying yes? That tells you nothing?
If.
Well, but we won't know until
But you don't
we
know
ask.
until you ask.
I don't think there's going to be enough return on investment on that question.
What are we investing? I mean,
What if 100 people say nope?
I mean, it's not costing us anything.
And are they telling the truth? That's what I'm saying. I don't think you're going to.
Are they telling the truth either way? Are they telling
Right.
the truth on any
I
of
don't-
these?
They might be putting it out.
I mean,
Why-
this is
yeah.
this is to gauge
I'd like to see
atmosphere,
I would
climate,
like-
employee satisfaction. Like, you know,
I would like to see that question stay. I'll just leave that there. I think it's very important, and what we do with it, depending. I mean, we'll see what we get back. Maybe we do nothing with it. Maybe we do something. We don't know until we see what the results are.
maybe it's only 2 people. Then you go, okay, well, it's probably always 2 people. You know,
And if it's
you won't
0,
know.
then
You won't
maybe
know
certain-
who's saying it, but if you get a strong answer one way or the other, that's going to tell you something. If 0 people say yes, great. If 6, 7, 8 people say yes, we have a problem on our hands. If it's somewhere in the middle,
I'm
it's
voting no on that question.
So Matt does not want it. Sonali does not want it. Jason does not want it. Julie does want it. Jeff? No, so that's 4. All right, I'll strike it.
I think it's a mistake.
Agreed. Ditto clique. That's okay. All right, next survey.
Just throw it all out, maybe.
Oh. Julie, you win some, you lose some. We lost that one. That's it. Let's move on.
We lose a lot.
Speak for yourself. All right. The
It's
other
really
one that
late,
has
I'm
the other one
tired.
that has 20 questions. Not the admin one, the staff outside of admin.
That's
Matt, do you have any comments on that?
Did you want to remove number 6 on
yeah.
this one
So
too?
that one we're
This is the
moving
same
6,
one.
Same question.
Okay. Outside. Admin. Okay. So number 2, did you want it to again say personal goal setting? Okay. That's right. 20 disappears. Bye-bye, number 20. Right? Am I assuming that you guys want number 20
Yeah.
gone on this one too?
Yes. Oh.
For the same reason? Okay. And number 18, you want me to take out the word very?
Yes.
I am getting. Look at me. Try long. Okay. Number 11, you want it to mirror the other one where.
Yeah, because 11 and 17 are the same, so if you could combine them into one.
Okay.
It's about, both are about feedback and, you know,
Mhm.
and fear for getting in trouble. Could we use better language on that one?
Fear of repercussions.
Yes,
There
that's
you go.
better. Thank you.
Sorry, sometimes I have my lawyer brain on and sometimes I don't.
9 and 12 are the same. They can choose one or
Hold on, I'm behind a little bit. 9.
No, we kept them separate.
No.
No.
They're different.
They're different.
different.
Yeah.
This is about the facilities in the district.
Right. One
Facilities.
says I have what I need to do, and then the other is having to do with
Professional development again. Training.
yeah.
It's not always professional development. I mean, there's lots of people that will be taking this that don't fall under the category of, so to speak, professional development the way the teachers and stuff do, but
Might have the hammer, but I don't know how to use it. because I've
Right,
been trained.
exactly. I was just saying tools versus. Right. Yeah. I hope they have the training. Or safety
On
training,
number
I should
7, can
say.
we take the word directly out?
What'd you say?
On number 7, can we take the word directly out because their work does not directly contribute?
Well, it depends on how you define success.
No, so their work contributes, not directly contributes. There's a word directly in there.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. There's some indirect contributions there.
Yeah. So you need.
Just you want me to take out directly? Okay.
Yeah.
Number 7. Move directly. Okay.
I have a question with the 14th one.
Hmm?
My supervisor treats all his or her employees fairly.
Mhm.
If somebody is complaining, you have no idea if you're being treated fairly. If it's a whining session, how would you know that the supervisor treated you, just because your demand was not met? I think that is very. I think either it needs to be reworded or it's.
What Robin says a lot, perception is reality. So I mean, we're just.
Yeah, but we are not here on perception.
Again, I go back to, I thought the purpose of this was to get a pulse on the atmosphere, the climate, overall job satisfaction. All of that stuff does fall into that category that I know some people are uncomfortable with, where it's like kind of this gray subjective area where kind of a lot of qualitative data, maybe not a lot of quantitative data. I know some people aren't super comfortable with that, but the bottom line is if we're going to ask for satisfaction and engagement and atmosphere type reading, that's where that sort of type of question comes in. Is, I mean, each question, like I said, I can set it up so that each question has a comment box, and perhaps they'll be able to kind of expound on it, but I think that it's worth asking.
I'm fine with that question.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Any more comments?
Jeff, you'll email me after you kind of think about it.
Okay, that's it. Moving on to the consent agenda. Anybody have anything about the consent agenda?
Did we get a letter for those leaves of absence? Did I just not see it? There are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I must have somehow not opened that.
You just gotta
Included.
scroll all the way down.
Thought I did. Fine.
Anything?
No, yeah.
No.
The consent agenda
Personnel's
is-
in there, all the leave of absence.
Consent agenda is the board minutes of February 12th, closed session minutes of February 12th, closed session minutes of February 12th, press policy 96 4:170, 5:200, 6:50, 6:150, 7:185, 7:190, 7:250, 7:270, and 7:305. The Amex January report, expenditure report of February kindergarten project cost log. We have personnel, which is resignation and leave of absences. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items as presented.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Motion by Robbins, seconded by Vess. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Julie Simpson.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Robin Cleek.
Aye.
Wes Pohl and I. Matt Jacobs.
Abstain.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. 6 ayes, 1 abstain. The next item is the next action item is the Lakeside Transportation Agreement. Anybody have any questions? Do I have a motion? Any motion? Do I have a motion?
It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement for transportation services between the Board of Education Hawthorn School District 73 and Lakeside Transportation Inc. as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Julie, seconded by Matt. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Sonali Patel.
Aye.
Matt Jacobs.
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Robin Cleek.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Julie Simpson.
Aye.
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. Next is the transportation contract extension by first student. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the contract extension for charter and summer scholar transportation services between the Board of Education of Hawthorn School District 73 and First Student Inc. as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Robin, seconded by Julie. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Jason Tron.
Aye.
Julie Simpson.
Aye.
Jeff Bard.
Aye.
Robin Cleek.
Aye.
Wes Pullen, aye. Matt Jacobs.
Aye.
Sonali Patel.
Aye. Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. We are going to table the Board of Education meeting calendar for next time. They figure out what to do in March. President's report. I'd like to congratulate the Hawthorn Middle North and Middle South teams for their performance at the regional math counts, which was completed on Saturday, February 17th, as well as at Carmel Catholic High School last Saturday on 24th. Our 8th team took first place, and our 7th grade team took a second place in their division. The kids did a great job. That is it. I also want to congratulate Mr. Anthony Dengler on his new position. We're very sad to see him go, but very happy for him. So thank you, Mr. Dengler, and thank you for doing a great job and stepping in for Jamie Khan when she was on maternity leave. So thank you and congratulations.
Okay, a couple of items. Elementary North, the week of Valentine's Day, Elementary North students participated in the Great Kindness Challenge, which is a program that prevents bullying and promotes positive school culture. Every child who completed their kindness checklist was entered into a raffle to win a special lunch with the principal. Congratulations to Ava A., Melania M., Maylee L., Maddie W., Daniel W., and Kaylee F., who were this year's winners. Middle School North girls 7th grade volleyball team is the 2018 conference champions. Congratulations to them. Middle School South Student Council is doing a food drive, or was doing a food drive, wanted to collect 500 items, and they actually collected 835 for the Vernon Township Food Pantry. So congratulations, and thank you to everybody who participated in that. Also, congratulations to the Hawthorn South wrestlers for an outstanding performance in the IESA Regional Wrestling Tournament. On Saturday, returning 3-time qualifier Will L. highlighted the event with a dominant performance, pinning all 3 of his opponents en route to the 90-pound regional championship. The team finished second place overall in the 11-team field. We also have on March 2nd, the end of the trimester 2, Kashmir Pulaski Day, no school for students. It was a severe weather makeup day. Hopefully we won't have that between now and then. March 6th, trimester 3 ends. March 7th, Middle School North, Middle School South, and Vernon Hills High School Jazz Concert at the Vernon Hills High School at 7 p.m. March 9th and 10th, NIMCon Organizational Music Contest, all-day event, 7th and 8th grade, band and orchestra and chorus at Beach Park Middle School. The 10th of March, PTO Mothers Daughters Tea at Sullivan Center, 1 to 3. And on March 12th, Board of Education meeting, district office in the boardroom at 7. Thank you very much.
Do you have any future topics of discussion? We have the EFMP, which is ongoing, the Kindergarten Center, which is ongoing. Anything else anybody would like for discussion?
Still a little bit confused. I'd asked a question before, but really the teachers shouldn't have to answer, nor do I expect them to know the answer. Still a little bit confused about some of the privacy policies with the technology. And I'd asked about it in the fall a few times. And if we're not going to discuss it in open sessions because we don't want to share information that could potentially be used against us, can we put it on an agenda to discuss some other time?
Is it different from the security memo you got from Dimitri on December 15th?
It must be, because I don't think I would have kept asking after that if it was clear. Trying to figure out if we're compliant with certain things we're supposed to be compliant with, as far as parents being aware of where these sites are being accessed outside of Google Classroom, and are we compliant with people approving and consenting to that? Or are we not? I mean,
So
I'm just curious,
the
because
administrative procedure actually then.
Like Google has a suggestion for how you inform parents to literally proactively opt in, knowing here's all the third-party users that might end up getting some information, all information, no information. So are we compliant with that? And if not, why not? And has Illinois made any, has there been established case law yet, which there may not be because some of this stuff is fairly new, but is there any established case law as to how these things are being decided? Because when my kid is coming home with credit card applications, I'm thinking something is up.
Let me reread the December, and then I might call you or send you an email and ask if this is. I might send you is this the question you're asking, to see if I can make sure I've got the right.
Okay. I mean, there's like COPA, there's FERPA, there's a few other.
That is there in that memo.
Right, but then there's the policies that Google themselves suggests that you implement. And if they're suggesting them, that means it's because they don't want to be liable for you not doing it that way. So
let me look at it and see. I might
just want to
need
make
to
sure.
reach out and just see if I'm going in the right direction.
I mean, are we following best practice with establishing their email addresses? Their email addresses give away a fair amount of information in and of themselves.
Do we have scheduled for a future topic update on preparations for dual language expansion?
It is on.
And then secondly is update on how the one-to-one has gone, so that we have the review in time to make any changes that we might want to make to the budget for next year. Do we have that scheduled as well?
It's on the agenda.
Okay.
Anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to we adjourn.
Motion by
Jason,
seconded by Julie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7 ayes, 0 nays. Thank you, everybody, for staying late.
I know. Nobody said anything.
I'm done with press.
I know.
For instance,
I
this.
know.
Don't you think that's
Yeah, I saw your mom tonight.
They really should break those up.
Yeah.
Consider ourselves
I saw your mom
be
break
okay
it
at
up.
medium
I don't know why.
security.
Don't